Something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
7 minutes past the top of the hour. You're tuned in to the Big Talker, 106.7 FM, overlooking Battleship, North Carolina, on the banks of the Cape Fear River. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535 if you'd like to be a part of the show from now until 10 o'clock. That's 910-299-7535. So we get our broadcast underway here from the coast of southeastern North Carolina, where we begin our Wednesday morning, and we will wrap it up on Wednesday night in the mountains of North Carolina. As I'll be heading up the mountain after the show, as soon as we sign off at 10 o'clock, jump in the car, and it's up to Boone, North Carolina for tonight's nationally televised college football game between Coastal Carolina and Appalachian State. Big football game tonight. I'm incredibly amped up. I'm already in my broadcast gear for this evening. Things kick off at 7:30 tonight at Kidd Brewer Stadium, otherwise known as The Rock. Coastal Carolina, of course, nationally ranked. Both teams competing in the same division within the Sun Belt Conference. Winner of tonight's game is in the driver's seat through the second half of the college football season. And we'll jump on the air at around 6 o'clock tonight with our pregame show in the Myrtle Beach area. So if you're Charlotte, even up towards Bolivia, Southport, and due south as you head to the Grand Strand, well, you can pick up our broadcast coverage beginning at 6 tonight on their news talk station, Hot Talk 99.5 WRNN, online at WRNN.net. So we start today on the coast, and we end our day in the mountains. And then I'm trying to figure out how and what I'm going to do as far as departure time following the end of the game later on this evening. That's still sort of up in the air. I do know that Chad Adams will be in here, well, we hope he is, along with TK tomorrow morning to carry out the 3-hour morning program here on The Big Talker. But really, this is... This date has been circled on the calendar since the college football schedule was released. The success we had last year at Coastal, finishing the season 11-1, nationally ranked. We're undefeated right now. Appalachian State, sort of our rivals within the Sun Belt. Two teams based in the Carolinas, one on the mountains, one on the coast. So really looking forward to this, and it could go a long way for Coastal. They've never, in the history of this matchup, have never beaten Appalachian State in Boone. We did knock off the Mountaineers at home last year. And I know the place is going to be rocking. In fact, I have some friends who have already made the trip, and they said even last night there was a bit of a buzz. And I know it's a Wednesday night nationally televised football game, but that is, we play in this mid-level sort of conference in college football, and they give, within the television rights, they give these mid-level conferences opportunities to get in front of a national audience. And well, Coastal has taken complete advantage of that over the last few years, and we're listed at number 14 in the country. And we'll kick things off from The Rock tonight at 7:30. So GPS, I should be there around 3:30. Get a little lunch, and then it's off to the stadium and to set up the radio equipment with my good friends Joe Cashin, Chris Bergen, and Lane Harris, who help make up the Chanticleer Sports Network and our football broadcast team. So looking forward to that, but lots of business to get to as we get through the first hour of our program here this morning, up until 10 o'clock, of course. State Treasurer Dale Folwell going to join us as he does twice a month on Wednesdays inside that 8 o'clock block. And I want to poke him a bit on a decision that he made back on Friday. So this organization known as the National Legal and Policy Center, they're an ethics watchdog group. They had sent a letter to North Carolina State Treasurer Dale Folwell a couple of weeks back requesting that the Tar Heel State join others in the immediate divestiture of holdings in all public pension funds managed and controlled by the state of North Carolina from a company known as Unilever. The Unilever's subsidiary is the ice cream brand known as Ben & Jerry's. And this organization known as the National Legal and Policy Center wanted the treasurer to divest the public pension funds managed and controlled by the state treasurer related to Ben & Jerry's because of their decision to discontinue selling its products in Israel. And, this is a story that could go crumpled up a piece of paper and thrown on the side. But nonetheless, I'm sure you heard a couple of weeks back the founders of Ben & Jerry's. They were interviewed by some reporter asking them about, this decision to pull their products off the shelves in Israel because the Israelis are occupying Palestine territory and they don't agree with it, this, that, and the other. And once again, obviously two very liberal, progressive men that run this company. What is it, up in Vermont, I believe. And she was just picking their brain as to, why did you make this decision? And they gave some, lame sort of response and typical, seemed like right out of the squad's talking point playbook, meaning the AOCs, the Rashida Tlaibs, the Omar Ilhans. And then, they thought they were going to be done with that portion of the conversation and move on. Well, then the reporter actually, kind of doubled down. She then said, well, listen, if you're so upset with the decisions made by foreign nations on the other side of the world, why are you not more involved in, advocacy and activism within the United States? And there have been, in her eyes, questionable laws and policies put forth in states around the country. So why are you not pulling your products if this means so much to you and you want to be so much involved in the public square? Why are you not pulling your products off the shelves in places like Texas? That Texas now has pushed forward with an abortion law, election laws, the state of Georgia, this, that, and the other. And the reporter, posed the question, and he just kind of sat there with a dumb look on his face for about 5 minutes. And, well, I don't know. That's a good question. It's good to see even those on the left at the end of the day, at least some of them, including these Looney Tunes, Ben and Jerry, that, at least they still have some sort of mojo in their body that lends towards capitalism as compared to what we see within other sides of the political spectrum that lean to the left, that push policies and take us further away from a society that has led to some of the best quality of life, even for the lowest levels of socioeconomic status anywhere in the world. So it's still good to see at the end of the day, the bottom line for a lot of folks, even the founders of Ben & Jerry's, that they, at the end of the day, they still understand what bottom line means and they enjoy their money. Well, Dale Folwell responded to that letter, and he says North Carolina will hold off on withdrawing its investments from Ben & Jerry's holding company, despite the request by the National Legal and Policy Center. Arizona and New Jersey have already announced intentions to withdraw investments from their state's holdings due to some laws that are in place that are tied to keeping relations with Israel on the up and up. So we'll hear from the state treasurer about this. This is one of just a few topics we'll pick his brain on. It popped up in the news last week, and I thought, well, we'll have him on. Let's ask him about it. I don't know how much money, how much of our pension funds in our state, of course, managed by our state treasurer, how much is invested in the Ben & Jerry holding company, but nonetheless, good fodder here this morning and maybe distract us from all the other crazy news that we've got going on, well, locally, statewide, and nationally that we'll get to as we move through the broadcast here this morning. Our friend Richard Battle will also be with us from the Lone Star State, author of Navigating Life's Journey, Common Sense and Uncommon Times. Richard's on a bit of a streak of positivity here when it comes to the glass half full sort of mindset that, well, we often stray away from in this sort of format because of all of the frustrating pull your hair out sort of news that comes from government in most cases. Well, we're going to continue that trend this morning, and Richard, in the middle of the week, will provide us some enlightening thoughts and ones that lead towards positivity. Because then when we follow up with our friend Hannah Cox from the Foundation for Economic Education, we'll be headed in a very different direction. Hannah, of course, lays the wood down like no one else who joins the program on a weekly basis. About twice a month, Hannah is with us, and she is extremely thorough and forthright in her thoughts and always has, of course, the facts to back up the fire that she spits when she joins our program, and she'll be with us just after 9:30. We'll continue to talk about, well, the consequences of shutting down the world for the better part of 18 months. There's no question that the first year of the pandemic will go down in history as one of loss, economic suffering, and social strife. Not only did hundreds of thousands of people die related to COVID, but the sweeping mandates and restrictions implemented by government in the name of slowing the spread had lethal consequences in their own right. And we've highlighted them ad nauseum for the past 18 months. In fact, as these government restrictions and mandates were coming down the pike 18, 19, 20 months ago, we were throwing out the warning signs. End of the day, this is going to cause some long-term issues. Well, one of those long-term issues, and, well, with that said, the full scope of which won't be known for years on end. New data out just the other day confirmed that fatal drug overdoses hit new highs between March of 2020 and 2021, further illuminating the fallout of life under lockdown. An astounding 96,000 Americans died from drug overdoses over that one-year period, a 29.6% increase from the previous year. Anyone with an ounce of common sense knew lockdowns would lead to more deaths of despair, abuse, and isolation. It wasn't hard to predict, yet we went forward anyway. That was from Hannah Cox on Twitter yesterday, and we'll build off some of those thoughts when she joins us to round out the guest list this morning in the final hour of our show. We're 21 minutes past the hour, a lot of local stuff going on within southeastern North Carolina, and we're going to do a little compare and contrast through this hour. because the New Hanover County Department of Health and Human Services, well, they're going to discuss the mask mandate that's been in place here in New Hanover County, nowhere else around the Cape Fear region, just New Hanover County. And again, we're going to compare with this approach as to what we're seeing elsewhere around the state. And we'll take a look at Cabarrus County specifically here this morning, as their Board of Education voted this week to make masks optional within the schools beginning next week. And we'll look at how thorough and open and transparent they've been with their residents in one section of the state as compared to life as we know it here in New Hanover County, in the do as I say and don't ask any questions sort of mindset that's been coming from, well, appointed bureaucrats in the case of the New Hanover County Board of Health and Human Services. That's all ahead as we get the broadcast underway here on this Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. Great to be with you here on The Big Talker, 106.7 FM.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join us for Wake Up Our Faith, a real conversation about living out your faith between Sundays, streaming live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Catch the replay every Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Stop by and visit us on the web at uprint.life.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE-certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gabe Frank of the Frank Institute, and I wanted to tell you about our IV vitamin, infusion, and hydration therapies. These IVs are the most effective treatment for vitamin and nutrition deficiencies available, and with our wide range of offering, your treatment can be tailored to your specific needs. Whether you struggle with hydration or nutritional deficiency, injury recovery, low energy, please feel free to check out our IV infusions today. Schedule an appointment at 910-679-8534 or check out all our treatment services at www.frankinstitute.com.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
Hey, this is Mark Markley with Recovering Hope. We're going to continue with our diversion into prevention and alternative treatments for the Wuhan flu that you don't hear anywhere else. We'll continue to speak with a variety of professionals and others with personal experience. We'll share the truth, reduce your fears, and bring you hope. So please tune in right here on the Big Talker every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. for Recovering Hope.
I don't feel sorry for people who are living in million-dollar houses and are complaining about people like me trying to take care of everyone.
Take this pink ribbon off my eyes. I'm
I don't know. As far as sound bites go, that might be an all-timer when it comes to local elected officials. You got to give the New Hanover County Commission chair credit. I mean, she speaks her mind and doesn't give two you-know-whats about what you think about her. So, on that note, I'm sure she's very proud of herself, the way in which she conducts business as the chair of our New Hanover County Board of Commissioners. Wilmington City Council met last night. I don't know. They're talking about tree wells and purchasing aquatic lawnmowers. I breezed through the story. I said, I'm good. There was some debate regarding the old Wave Transit property and renovations to it, and that discussion has been pushed a couple of months, I believe, into next year, which would then, of course, potentially bring a very different makeup when it comes to our city council here in Wilmington. Early voting continues today in the municipal races across our region. Election Day, November 2nd. The New Hanover County Board of Education also met yesterday. Of course, they've been under scrutiny for quite some time. This board and the previous one as well. And we have documented and highlighted all the reasons why for the better part of 2.5 years. Well, lawsuit has also been filed. Republican Liberty Caucus, if I'm not mistaken, has filed a lawsuit against the board and the sheriff's office after unmasked protesters were denied entry to last school board meeting. And then the headlines were unmasked citizens storming school board meeting. Well, yeah, there were some people out in front of the building, and some were escorted out because they were in violation of the mask policy. Yet, a Looney Tune from the other side of the political persuasion jumps in there and starts yelling and screaming and holding everything up and getting in the faces of others, and nothing to see here. When others of a certain political persuasion get the rules bended in their favor at city council meetings to speak out of turn, even though they did not follow the guidelines and the rules that are set up for citizens to speak to our board, and then unleash a slew of vulgarities and point the finger and create chaos outside of the council meeting, where elected officials have to be escorted to their vehicles along with other employees of the convention. Nothing to see here. Billboards get destroyed from people of certain political persuasions. Not guilty. We see how this goes and the double standard. It's no surprise that this sort of stuff, it occurs right here at the local level. We don't have to go anywhere further to see issues that pop up on cable news on a daily basis. Well, that kind of stuff going on right here in Wilmington, North Carolina. So the New Hanover County Board of Education held its first meeting yesterday. It was an interim monthly meeting. I don't know what the agenda was or what specifics. They got an update on elementary school suspensions. Lawsuit filed against the board and the sheriff's office, this mask mandate, which we'll get to after the bottom of the hour news break, because, the New Hanover County Board of Health and Human Services has announced that they'll be discussing the mask mandate that's been in place since late August here in New Hanover County, and we'll tell you when. They're in no real hurry. We'll leave it at that for now. Well, and at Tuesday evening's meeting, no protesters were present and the audience was minimal. So I guess the New Hanover County Board of Education got exactly what they wanted.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. A House committee investigating the January 6th Capitol insurrection has voted unanimously to hold former White House aide Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress. The longtime ally of former President Donald Trump defied a subpoena for documents and testimony. Trump has aggressively tried to block the committee's work by directing Bannon not to answer questions while also suing the panel to try to prevent Congress from obtaining former White House documents. In Haiti, negotiations are stretching into a fourth day, seeking the return of 17 members of a U.S.-based missionary group kidnapped over the weekend by a gang that is demanding $1 million ransom per person. The group includes 5 children whose ages range from 8 months to 15 years, but a top Haitian official said yesterday that authorities are not clear whether the ransom amount includes them. 16 of the abductees are Americans and 1 Canadian. Back in the Cape Fear, thefts involving valuable metals are on the rise, and now some thieves are taking things one step further. They're stealing bronze flower vases from grave sites and selling them for scrap metal. Layla Price says someone stole the bronze vase off of her 10-year-old son's grave site in Oleander Memorial Gardens. Horton Iron and Metal says thieves often cut up the items they steal or flatten them beyond recognition to avoid detection. Oleander Memorial Garden released a statement which says a few bronze vases were stolen last week, and they hope area scrap metal dealers will report to authorities anyone trying to steal one as scrap metal. And do you need a flu shot? If so, they'll be available today at Wrightsville Beach Town Hall. The New Hanover County Health Department will be administering the flu shots from 10 o'clock this morning until 1 this afternoon as part of their community outreach program. The event is open to the public. You're asked to bring your photo ID and insurance card. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Another spectacular day on tap all across the Cape Fear. We are expecting plenty of sunshine once again, and temperatures are going to be a bit warmer than where they've been the past few days as well. We'll top off in the upper 70s and the low 80s inland of the coast, and closer to the coastline, we are topping off in the low to middle 70s. But tonight, mostly clear skies in store for us again as temperatures fall to the middle and the upper 50s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
All right, as we continue in this first hour this morning, State Treasurer Dale Folwell going to be with us as he is twice a month on Wednesdays in that second hour block. Also, Richard Battle ahead this morning from the Lone Star State, and Hannah Cox from the Foundation for Economic Education, all still ahead as far as guests go today. If you'd like to phone in, 910-299-7535. That's 910-299-7535. Up and running this morning through Facebook video portion of the show, also available by subscribing to our YouTube channel. So we may mention that, audience was minimal and there was nobody protesting at the New Hanover County Board of Education meeting. I said, that's kind of exactly what the New Hanover County Board of Education probably wanted. No one in attendance and, no one paying attention to, what they're up to. A lot of questions surrounding, that board and now the 3-year framework that's been laid out by the county manager at the tune of $98 million to address community violence and school safety. So we'll see where that conversation goes in the weeks ahead. Your calls come before anything at 910-299-7535. Caller, you're with us. Good morning.
Comrade Joe, how are you?
I'm doing well, Jersey Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, 2 things. The underwater lawnmowers.
Or whatever they were.
A friend of mine, That's for ponds and stuff to cut back the vegetation,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
cattails and all. And something that's only used once in a great while. So I would say get a subcontractor to do this instead of having a piece of equipment
Yeah, we got,
sitting around.
probably hire another city employee and, get them a pension and another, job where most of the time they're probably just screwing around on their iPhone and, just make sure they got to act like they're doing something. I know how these jobs work. You jump in the truck, you drive around. Oh, yeah, that pond, we may or may not get to it Wednesday, Thursday, maybe Tuesday of next week. I've got a lot of stuff going on today, so I've got to go check, got to go back to the, the warehouse and make sure I check the clipboard off to show that I'm here at this time. You know how these sorts of jobs work.
Now, when I retire in a couple of years, do you think I could start running up to Jersey and trading local fresh shrimp and Blue Shark vodka for ice cream and, bring it back and forth?
Be careful, that's interstate commerce along, state lines. You may get in some trouble not that I know anything about that sort of stuff or have been involved in any of that sort of stuff in the past. I'm not, whoa, there's someone knocking on my door. It might be the FBI. I mean, who knows these days?
I think little Sophia would support my endeavors in that.
I mean, in the old days, what would it be? Cigarettes and maybe, what would it be? Handbags from Chinatown? You bring the Chinatown handbags down, you bring the cigarettes up, huh? That's a good idea.
Definitely so. I knew a guy one time that did something like that.
I don't know nothing. I've never heard of such a thing or anything about it. It's another lifetime ago.
So, it's so funny. Is every company going to be so politicized now that they're going to pick what state they do business with? So,
I mean, that's the thing these days. When it comes to the political divide that we have, at least back in the day, and maybe they didn't say it, but they believed it. But at least back in the day, most of those who are of the left side of the political spectrum and persuasion, at least they were capitalists and enjoyed making money and understood the value in this sort of system that we have. It doesn't seem that is the dominating sort of line of thinking now, given what we hear coming from the left side of the political spectrum these days.
So you're going to pick a state by what goods they're allowed to sell. So North Carolina, I guess, will be My Pillow, steak, shrimp, and some good liquor.
I mean, yeah, but good liquor regulated by the state. I would encourage people. All they got to do, particularly if they live in your neck of the woods, central, southern Brunswick County. Now, you just shoot over that state line right there, and at the Costco, for instance, they sell that Kirkland brand, and I hate to shy away from some of the local distilleries that do a great job in selling and manufacturing product that I enjoy. But that Kirkland brand, I got to say, that I frequent over there in South Carolina, you don't really notice the difference between some of the high-end liquors that you get from the state-run ABC stores here in North Carolina as compared to what you can get in Costco just over in the Palmetto State. Just a little from an expert here.
Yes, I agree. I frequent Greens. They're a discount liquor store in Myrtle Beach, and then we hit a Raw bar and ease back over the line.
I mean that And back in the day, there's been stories told, of course, of the I-95 corridor right there south of the border, the empty, desolate, kind of freaky-looking sort of rest area that no one ever seems to be at. I've stopped there once or twice, and I'm like, all right, let's get out of here as quick as possible. But nonetheless, back in the day, that's why that area became such a popular destination, because across the state line, I think it was Robeson County or in that area. From what I understand, it was a dry county, so that's where people went over to get their booze and their hooch, way back in when.
Oh yes, even Brunswick County back in the day when I was growing up, it was 60-some miles back and forth to get a six-pack of beer, or 1 mile by boat. So in the evenings, we would get in the boat and go across to the Blue Point Marina. And the woman sold bait and beer, and that was it. And the store was about 10 by 10.
And now look at Brunswick County. They've got 13 local ABC boards that oversee the distribution of liquor within your county.
Well, I think that's the Yankee influence that changed that whole.
Okay. Well, I would just say, state's been run by, some libs for quite some time around here. So don't blame everything on the Yankees jersey, Mike.
Okay, Joe.
You have a good
great
one.
day. And hopefully, what channel is the game being televised?
It'll be ESPN, one of the ESPN, I believe, maybe the big one or ESPN2. But I'd rather have you tune into, our radio broadcast while you're sitting on the back porch enjoying a full moon and, maybe some, ice cold beverages of your choice.
Yes, I listen when I'm down in Brunswick County and you fade out. I listen to 99.5.
There we go. Look at that. All right, Jersey Mike, you have a great day, and don't start too early now, huh? It's only 7:40.
No, I'm actually headed to the doctor for bloodletting, so I'm a good.
So you've been a good boy for like 2 or 3 days. So everything's cleared out of the system. I know how that works. Gotta make sure you give a little detox before you go over to the doctor. Yes, sir, your liver's your enzymes are a little high. Well, you watch the news every day. You see the price of gasoline. It drives you to drink, doctor. Speaking of doctors, well, the New Hanover County Health and Human Services Board made an announcement yesterday that they plan to hold a special meeting to discuss possibly lifting the countywide mask mandate. That meeting scheduled for early November. We've got about 2.5 weeks before this unelected board of bureaucrats meet to debate and discuss possibly lifting the countywide mask mandate here in New Hanover. The only such mandate that is in place anywhere around southeastern North Carolina. So they made this announcement yesterday after the board received the latest COVID metrics. What was it, back in August? I think I was on vacation up in the Outer Banks with the family when I really wasn't paying attention to the news, and then all of a sudden, I think it was like my aunt from Maryland was like, hey, Joe, do you see that your county is implementing a mask mandate? Well, as of Monday, apparently the rate of positive COVID tests was 5.1% in New Hanover County. All right, keep that in mind here as we move through this conversation here. We had Libby Dunn on not too long ago. She's running for county commissioner next year. New Hanover County Concerned Citizens group that she's a part of highlighted the fact that, well, when this Health and Human Services Board here in the county requested or wanted feedback from the public, folks wrote in, and I'm sure there were a very number of passionate people that commented and sent their thought out feelings on the situation, and many backed with some sort of fact and evidence to support their thoughts. And well, according to Libby, who requested some of the emails that were sent, all public, of course. Well, they didn't really open any of them or read any of them. So, this unelected board of bureaucrats keeping the countywide mask mandate in place since late August. And I get it. We had a surge of this Delta variant, and now, for all intents and purposes, we've weathered this latest situation. And I know while this discussion was going on in late August to implement the mandate, a lot of folks, for the first time probably, were like, oh, we have a county health and human services board locally? Didn't know that. And then we started to look at the makeup of who is a part of the New Hanover County Health and Human Services Board, and some were questioning, as to their expertise to decide if we should be wearing masks or not. Like when you're walking into a restaurant, down the corridor, as you're being shown your table, you have to have the mask on, and then you sit down, and then it will never make sense, ever, ever, ever. And there's nothing that anyone can. I have yet to hear a good explanation as to how and why that makes any sort of sense. But never mind all that, because then anti-mask or they just point the finger back at you. You're a conspiracy theorist. No, I just would like to hear a legit explanation. If you could provide that for me, then I'd be like, okay, well, that makes some sense, and then we move on. Well, you can't, and you haven't. And I am sure that these folks are very qualified to sit on this board. But as one listener made note to me yesterday in an email, it does kind of seem odd that there's an optometrist, a veterinarian, psychologist, and social worker on this board, and they are the ones making the final decision on whether or not we should wear masks inside all buildings and at the workplace within our county. Yeah, but then, go over to my daughter's school in Scotts Hill, no mask. Go over to Brunswick County, no mandate. So you just, all right, what's the difference over here? I mean, I know things are a little bit different on the other side of the river. I don't know about that different. So elsewhere around the state, out in Cabarrus County, their school board announced Monday that it would make masks optional for all students, staff, and visitors beginning on October 26th. Remember, 5.1 positivity rate related to the Rona here in New Hanover County. The board also moved forward with revised metrics from what makes up of their COVID task force, which helped them make their decision. So apparently in Cabarrus County, they have decided long ago during the COVID situation that they were going to create a task force related to COVID to help guide some of their local decisions. This task force made up of health professionals, school district professionals, and parents. What a novel idea. Bring all the stakeholders together, put them in a room to develop the different recommendations that then ultimately the elected officials will make guiding their county. So they announced this on Monday within their schools. And, why? Well, because the district decided that they would make masks optional after 3 of the following key metrics were achieved in the county. Wait, you have a task force made up of health education officials and parents coming together to develop metrics that we can all see, understand, and wrap our heads around to know what is guiding decisions made by elected officials. So then when we hit these metrics, we can then move forward. Wow, what a novel idea. Among some of their metrics, the percent positive weekly rate of COVID tests must be less than 8%. New Hanover County at 5.1%. Number of positive cases in the last 14 days must be below or less than 547. The percentage of new students newly positive must be less than 8%. Students in the Cabarrus County schools currently at less than 1% that positivity rate. Total quarantines must be less than 8%. They say you hit 3 of those 4 metrics, that is sufficient enough to us to move forward with relaxing some of the restrictions and mandates. So in other areas in the state, you're telling me that counties have formed task forces with measurable and transparent results, providing clarity for residents and constituents based on discussions involving all stakeholders. Who would have thought that that approach might be something better than we're much smarter than you, and we're going to make our decisions no matter what you have to say? That's the way of life here in New Hanover County. 910-299-7535. Call that you're with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Joe. This is David Perry.
Hey, David. How are you?
Good. Since I was the one who actually filed this New Hanover County School Board lawsuit, I figure I'd call in since you were talking about the subject.
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to let you know, there's only so much that I can do. I have a regular job, and so, I've been spending most of my free time getting this lawsuit together, and so I wasn't available at the time that we're going to have the large-scale presence at the
Hey, David, I'm not sure what happened between your phone call initially to the last few minutes, but you got all sort of fuzzy here. Are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're much better.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. So, yeah, we didn't have the time to put together a large-scale presence for yesterday's school board meeting, just because. But we are planning on, and we're planning on having a large presence at the next regular meeting, which was originally scheduled for November 2nd, but that, of course, is Election Day. And so apparently yesterday at the school board meeting, they have decided to move that to November 9th. Which is fine, but we plan on being there with a large-scale group of people, demanding entry into the school board meeting, and whether or not the court agrees to grant my preliminary injunction in order to let us in anyway. But we're in the plans for that. Our New Hanover County Republican Liberty Caucus is in the plans of planning all that for November 9th at 5 p.m. So we're not giving up the fight. Stephanie Adams says she doesn't want to be the news of the week every week. Every time they have a school board meeting, start letting people in, and then maybe the problem will go away.
David, let me just ask you real quick, because I've read some of those stories, but why don't you, let our listeners, know kind of the basis of why you filed your suit and, how you think this may shake out, when it's entertained by the courts.
Yeah, so basically this is what they call the North Carolina Open Meetings Law, and it's pretty clear. Everybody, except for a few exceptions, most government bodies, when they have an open meeting, an open session, they're required to let everybody in. And if they violate that, then there's an avenue put into the law that says somebody like me, just an average citizen, can sue them for violating the open meetings law. In addition to that, I think it's we have a right, a First Amendment right, also guaranteed under the North Carolina Constitution, to assemble together and petition our government. And you know what? Some health board thinking that it's an emergency doesn't have a right to restrict that freedom. And so, and give us people who refuse to wear masks a less equal quality of access to the meetings. Where it's you can't just tell us that we're just watch it on YouTube. It's not the same thing. It's non-interactive. We don't get to get together and make our presence known. And basically, Stephanie Adams has been, even when people have been coming to the meetings and making their arguments and sending their emails, they've been basically ignoring the large portion of New Hanover County parents who simply just want to have choice when it comes to their kids wearing masks in the school.
I think that sort of echoed, across our region and throughout the country. The people, it's ridiculous to me, and I get it, the unrest and people getting boisterous and passionate about, this, that, or the other. Well, again, it does involve our children and their education, so, we should be very involved and passionate and, keeping, our elected officials' feet to the fire, so to speak, to make sure, we're getting the bang for our buck when it comes to our children. To me, it's a ridiculous sort of way of looking at things. We don't want to be in the news every week that we hold a meeting. To me, this should be front and center in the news when it comes to the education of our children, in which we spend upwards of $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 per student in the public school system to get the results that we currently see when it comes to proficiency rates, and then coupled with all of these different mandates and restrictions. It should be in the news every time you meet, and there should be a well-attended audience there, giving their feedback.
Yeah, and it would be nice if they could actually respond to it, even if they disagree with us. I mean, one of the things that I noticed even before I filed the lawsuit is you can look at study after study, and it'll show you that the masks hinder the quality of education our kids receive. So can you at least address that? Because
right.
It really does make a difference.
Well, my thought is they have no idea, which is why they have no legitimate response to you, which is why they remain silent. That's just me.
Yeah, so we're moving on. I have a preliminary injunction motion filed. If there's any Republican lawyers out there who are listening right now, hey, you know what? I'm not opposed to counsel coming on and taking over for me because, I know I'm not a lawyer. I dabble in the Constitution and our laws and in court cases, but it'd be nice if we had a pro step in and do a pro bono for us. So if you're out there, Mr. Republican attorney, and you actually believe in freedom, give me a call or come to our Facebook page or something,
David, thanks so much for the call. As we hit a break here before we get to the top of the hour, 910-299-7535. David, with the Republican Liberty Caucus, of course, it's been highlighted over the past week or so that they filed suit against the Sheriff's Office and the Board of Education regarding the mask mandates and those unable to attend these meetings because these mandates remain in place. But the Health and Human Services Board will get to this discussion 3 weeks from now, as announced yesterday, to discuss possibly lifting the only countywide mask mandate in the region.
In this corner, bugs. Every creepy, crawly pest that lurks in your home. And in this corner, Bug-No Pest and Termite Control. That's Mr. Bug-No to you, pal. If you have unwanted pests, let Bug-No Pest and Termite Control take the fight to them. Bug-No Pest and Termite Control is a family-owned and operated business, fully licensed and insured, and can handle all of your residential and commercial pest and termite control needs. Rated 5 stars on Angie's List and HomeAdvisor.com. Call 910-367-2501 to give bugs a knockout.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join myself and Kevin Adams every Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker for a fun, uplifting conversation about the upside of upside-down living.
Hey, I'm Yael Osaski.
And I'm David Clement.
We're the host of Consumer Choice Radio, broadcasting every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Consumer Choice Radio is a weekly conversation featuring the latest news, interviews, and expert analysis that covers consumer topics from around the world.
ConsumerChoiceRadio.com.
Here, Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catenacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
I'm State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better state. We are one of the fastest growing and most reviewed insurance agencies in Wilmington. That's because our customers love the personalized attention that we give to you. Let us help you get to a better state by visiting our website at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
All right, as we wrap up our first hour here on the Big Talker FM, still ahead, our friend Richard Battle of the Lone Star State, navigating life's journey, common sense and uncommon times. Hannah Cox with the Foundation for Economic Education. After the top of the hour news break, we will hear from our state treasurer, Dale Folwell. Treasurer Folwell joins us twice a month to kick off this 8 o'clock block on Wednesday mornings. I got to say, I'm amped up here this morning. A little Allison Chains in the Rooster as we're headed to the mountains after the show here today to knock out some Mountaineers, Coastal Carolina and Appalachian State tonight. This date has been circled on the calendar for months. It's finally here, and we're headed up the mountain after the show here today. We'll be back.
Come the
keeping Whiteville informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
People can go Christmas shopping as normal. We have to make sure that all the necessities are there.
DeSantis saying that Florida has port facilities and would be willing to accept any vessels that could be rerouted there. Fewer police officers on duty in Chicago this morning. 21 officers placed on unpaid leave for refusing to disclose their COVID vaccination status to the city. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio set to announce a COVID vaccine mandate for all municipal workers, and that includes first responders. Unvaccinated employees will reportedly be placed on unpaid leave until they can show proof of vaccination. The White House defending the Biden policy of flying illegal aliens, many of them unaccompanied minors, from Texas to Florida and New York in the middle of the night.
We are talking about early flights, earlier than you might like to take a flight. It is our legal responsibility to safely care for unaccompanied children until they can be swiftly unified with a parent or a vetted sponsor.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. Well, it looks like that modest bank account of yours is safe from the prying eyes of Big Brother, at least for now.
Bowing to an outcry from taxpayers, Senate Democrats are abandoning their proposal to have banks report any deposits or withdrawals of $600 or more to the IRS. The plan was universally condemned by average citizens and by banks themselves as too much government surveillance.
That's correspondent Keith Peters. Watching Wall Street this morning, stock futures in the red. Dow futures are down 28 points. NASDAQ futures off 7 points. And the S&P futures 3.5 points lower. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Right now, people are home with their pet more often, and I think especially with the shedding, they're more cognizant of what's going on and that it's an actual issue.
Nala's got some skin issues. He gets really going and scratching.
Excessive shedding, a lot of just scratching and itching.
Digging, scratching, and itching and biting. On top of that, he was starting to get black buildup in his ears.
DINOVITE.com.
I just heard the Dynovite commercial so many times that I said, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And I ordered it and tried it, and it worked.
We started Dynovite, and in our first stock, we noticed a difference, especially with the shedding.
Within 3 weeks, he's not scratching and itching, and he's an all-around happier dog.
We've got 4 dogs, all different ages, all different sizes, and they've all just responded really well to the Dynovite, and they all love it.
We will be using Dynovite for life.
You won't believe how happy your dog will be.
We order our Dynovite from Dynovite.com. DINOVITE.com.
2 bombs attached to a bus carrying Syrian troops exploded in Damascus during today's morning rush. 14 people killed. Washington Post reporter Sarah Dadush is in the Syrian capital, spoke with the BBC.
These attacks don't usually happen in Damascus that often. This is the deadliest attack likely since 2017, when the Islamic State killed around 30 people in an attack on the Justice Palace. It happened at 6:45 a.m. Local time, which means the streets were probably busy with people going to work. And usually these kinds of attacks are usually carried out by the Islamic State. But what we did see is at least around 2 hours later, the government launched a pretty deadly attack on the north of Syria. They struck a market and killed, so far, at least 10 civilians, and there are dozens wounded. It's unclear if that was in retaliation for the attack.
10 people killed in government shelling of a town in the last rebel enclave in northwest Syria. News and analysis at townhall.com. Negotiations stretching into a 4th day, seeking the return of 17 members of an Ohio-based Christian missionary group kidnapped over the weekend by a criminal gang in Haiti.
That gang is demanding $1 million ransom per person. The kidnapped victims include 5 children whose ages range from 8 months to 15 years. But a top Haitian official says authorities are unclear whether the ransom amount includes those children. 16 of the abductees are Americans and 1 is a Canadian.
That's correspondent Andrew Stewart. House committee investigating the January unrest at the U.S. Capitol, voting unanimously to hold former White House aide Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress. Bannon, who once worked in the Trump administration, although not at the time of the riot, defied a subpoena for documents as well as testimony. Former President Trump contends that the investigation is politically motivated. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Beautiful morning across the Cape Fear region, and great to be with you as we overlook Battleship North Carolina once again this morning on the banks of the Cape Fear River. You're tuned in to the Big Talker, 106.7 FM. Our live audio stream is available each and every day at bigtalkerfm.com. Video portion of the show also available on our social media platforms on Facebook and by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Twice a month at this time on Wednesdays, our state treasurer, Dale Folwell, joins us, the keeper of the public purse here in the Old North State. Treasurer Folwell, it's a pleasure. Good morning, sir. I hope all is well.
Everything's great, and it's great to be with you, and I'm glad it's such another beautiful day in the Cape Fear region.
I mean, not a cloud in the sky so far, beautiful sunrise, and we've got a bird's eye view of it all, from this beautiful viewpoint that we have here in downtown Wilmington. Treasurer, I never thought that would be entertaining conversations about ice cream with you here during these twice a month discussions, but here we are. This is the year 2021, and kind of anything goes. So I caught a news release that you sent out last week. You had a group that petitioned you to pull some of the state pension fund investments from the Ben & Jerry's holding company over their decision to pull some of their products off the shelves on the other side of the world in Israel. Can you just kind of break this down for us? Because I know other states have gone down that pathway, but not yet here in North Carolina. Tell us why.
This is one of the many responsibilities that we have as the keeper of the public purse, and that is to make sure that we don't pick and choose which laws to apply or who to apply them to. This law was passed in North Carolina by the General Assembly, I believe, signed by the governor over 3 years ago, which basically said that any company that boycotts Israel, that the state cannot invest in any securities that are issued by that company. And this is something, obviously, we've been reacting to, but there was a letter sent by not only this organization, but even back in August to the governor of North Carolina, which prompted a letter back to us from the appropriations chairs, Jason Sain, in the North Carolina House of Representatives, and basically asking what our plan was to comply with the law the General Assembly passed. So this press release that you're referring to is just our answer, because we were getting a lot of calls. The things we're getting the most calls about right now are this Ben & Jerry's policy, as well as the new proposed legislation to surveil bank accounts with the balances over $600. So we just thought it was necessary to put out a press release acknowledging that we've received these letters, acknowledging our understanding these laws exist, and setting forth a process on how we're going to comply with these laws. So we do not respond to threats of Ben & Jerry's boycotting the state of Israel. We only respond to when they actually do the boycotting. So they have said that they're going to do this on December of 2022, and if they continue down that path, then the pension plan will have to divest itself of or neutralize its investments in Unilever, which is one of the biggest corporations in the history of the world, which actually owns Ben & Jerry's.
Treasurer Folwell, just get into some of the I guess more complicated points in which how we go about investing monies that are involved within the state pension fund, which again you oversee within your role as the state treasurer.
Oh, it does, and the pension plan topped $123 billion a couple of weeks ago. It is nearly 5 times the size of the state budget. Many of your listeners who teach, protect, and otherwise serve depend on this, either as active or retired employees. And as I said earlier, we are fiduciaries, which means we exercise a loyalty and duty of care to those who teach, protect, and serve, and that obviously at the same time we comply with the laws that are put upon this pension plan either by the state legislature or the federal government.
And with that said, of course, there have been some obstacles and challenges, to make sure that this fund remains solvent as compared to other states that are in a much worse situation than we are, within North Carolina. And also the fact that, and as a reminder to folks, those who serve in a public capacity, meaning as the treasurer mentioned, a teacher, a firefighter, a first responder, while their annual wage might not be, par for what they consider the work they put in, they do get benefits like a pension, among other things, following their completion of their career as a public servant in one of these capacities. I think that also gets lost in the conversation as well, Treasurer Folwell, that there are certain perks to working for the state or for a city or county that may not be upfront when it comes to what you see in your paycheck once a month, but later down the road, some protections and things that are in place to help you live your later years.
That's exactly correct. I can't certify what goes on at the federal level, but in terms of the local and the state pension plan of North Carolina, every public servant, every deputy sheriff, every teacher and trooper and those that teach, protect, and serve, they take 6% of their salary and put it in the pension plan every 30 days. Their employer puts in, this year at the state level, 16% of their salary into the pension plan. And that obviously gets invested and it grows. That produces a benefit. And, even though it's one of the best funded pension plans in the United States, but for example, ours is nearly 88% funded and South Carolina's is about 61% funded. That's billions of dollars difference. It does have headwinds. The plan never anticipated having the interest rates this low, which are a blessing for the economy. People to retire this early, which is a blessing for them individually, or people to live this long, which is a blessing for people to have longer life expectancy. So these are some of the challenges that we face, including, the topic that you brought up about Ben and Jerry's. But it's just important for your listeners to know that the way this all works is about 54% of a person's income. If you spend 30 years for state government, I hope some of the seniors at UNC Wilmington are considering public service, because it's not your daddy's Oldsmobile. That's an old school term, but there's a lot of opportunity to have decent incomes working in state and local government, especially in rural North Carolina. And this pension is about 55% of whatever their average yearly their highest 4 years of pay was. So, and that's for the rest of their life. And if you're a 21-year-old female listening this morning, and you go to work for the state, you could literally, most likely, draw more retirement checks
than you would paychecks.
Than paychecks, yeah.
State Treasurer Dale Folwell with us here this morning, providing us a very thorough explanation on a topic that not many people pay attention to day to day, though very relevant for hundreds of thousands of people all across the state of North Carolina. And as we know, many people moving from states with massive pension plans, places like New York and elsewhere. And, to look at their situation, which is pretty much in shambles in states like the Northeast and out towards the West, because of, various different reasons. But Treasurer Folwell, of course, lays out those challenges for us and is very open and transparent about them, and, works on ways to provide some solutions to, the issues that we see, in the forefront. Treasurer, you mentioned it just a moment ago, this plan, and we talked about it last week, or at least this proposal that's being discussed in Washington. Democrats starting to get some pressure from their political counterparts, the banking industry. Now, apparently, in terms of the IRS, the massive expansion of the IRS under, President Biden's proposals to basically report transactions of more than $600. That includes anyone and everyone, here in the United States that possesses a bank account. They've lifted that cap apparently now to $10,000 on a proposal that all bank transactions are reported to the IRS when it comes to $10,000. Does your stance change in any way, shape, or form, given the new numerical value that is attached to this plan?
It's just a reminder. I know you have a lot of folks listening to this show that have been connected with BB&T Truist over the years, and former CEO Kelly King always said, focus on the why, get the why right, and then we'll figure out the how. Well, they start focusing on the how, and they don't have the why right. We have to strike a balance. We know that there's a tax gap. We know that there's an underground economy. We know that the tax system is a voluntary system of compliance that relies on honesty and audits in order for it to make it happen. But my major concern with this is not on as the state treasurer, but as the chair of the State Banking Commission, which actually regulates all state chartered banks and savings and loans, including some of the great ones in the Cape Fear area, as well as First Citizens and BB&T Truist. I'm very concerned that this is going to drive more people away from banking, drive more money to the underground economy, and that, in my opinion, will result in more and underbanked individuals. And banking provides the multiplier and the capital so that they can take deposits and lend them out to people who want to have upward mobility and joy of achievement in their life by investing in a business or their own mind through education or maybe even a home. So I'm deeply concerned about this level of surveillance. As I said earlier, I think if they'll just go back to the drawing board and focus on the why this needs to be done, and then get the why right so that we can figure out the how. But I'm all in favor of going in and making sure that people are fully compliant with their tax bills. I have absolutely no opposition to that, but they got the how wrong.
State Treasurer Dale Folwell with us here this morning. And Treasurer, before I let you go, me, and everyone else, apparently, with the exception of those maybe inside the White House or those who at least speak for the White House on a day-to-day basis, see this issue with inflation sort of spiraling out of control. There's reports out there that the average family paying a little bit more than around $200 extra a month for basic goods and services, and I would say that number is probably a little higher than that. That's an underwhelming number because I see it at the grocery store every time I go to the grocery store, which is almost on a daily basis. For several selfish reasons. Sometimes you just got to get out of the house, Treasurer Falwell, so you leave something off the grocery list. So I got to run back to the grocery store real quick and pick that item up. But nonetheless. We talk about inflation and how that is in fact a tax in one way of looking at it on people that have been hurt the most over the course of the last year and a half as it relates to the shutdown, the pandemic, job losses, small businesses closing, etc. And when we look at inflation, the way Washington wants to fix this is just pour more government printed money into the economy. I don't see that helping the cause. Do you?
Well, you're exactly right. That's why I enjoy doing your show, because you actually try to inform your listeners about these important topics, not just affirm them. And inflation is a thief. It's the same thief that would come into your house and take your jewelry and your money. And as you said earlier, it's especially a thief for the lower and fixed income people of our state, who many don't have the assets that can inflate and can go up with inflation. So this is a very serious concern, but part of it is being brought on by the employment crisis. And to kind of tick and tie all this, that's why I was so grateful of several weeks ago to be in Wilmington and visit the cafeteria at UNC Wilmington, where we have folks with developmental disabilities who actually helping run the cafeteria. Probably couldn't stay open but for their presence. So the way all this relates back to what you just said is that the employment crisis is resulting in in businesses not being able to find workers. The wages are going up, and wages are going up, which is causing the cost of other things to go up. But it's just important to realize that as we talk about all these issues, the philosopher T.S. Eliot once said, "Hell is where nothing connects." And all this connects back to something else if you just, keep following the string. And the employment crisis is real, inflation is real, but also National Disabilities Employment Awareness Month is also real. That's this month, the month of October. We and others try to partner and bring employers together with people with developmental disabilities. I've visited AB Tech, Asheville Buncombe Tech the other day, and they have a program that connects individuals with potential employers. We do this statewide through an organization called the ARC of North Carolina. They have a very strong presence in the Cape Fear area, and so all this talk about inflation and is real. The employment crisis is real, and if people wonder why I talk the way I do or say the things I do, it's because this is really serious business.
State Treasurer Dale Folwell, the keeper of the public purse, he's with us twice a month on Wednesdays inside this 8 o'clock hour. Treasurer, as always, thank you for your service to the state of North Carolina and for being open and transparent with us twice a month for a 25-minute session. Not many elected officials, willing to do those sorts of things and hash out the issues and talk, in depth about the topics and responsibilities and roles that you hold, as a statewide elected official. Thanks again.
Well, thank you. And as your listeners may not know, you and I never talk about what we're going to talk about.
Never.
I think as the keeper of the public purse, I should be willing to respond to and transparent to any question you might ask, and that's what we do.
In fact, the treasurer has held, pretty much, he has phone calls that he holds, conference calls, and the headline of that, segment with the treasurer's office, "Ask me anything," and I'll provide you, the answers that I can. In a deliberate and transparent way. We need more of that in elected, office, from the local school board all the way up into Washington, D.C. Thanks again, Treasurer.
And part of that is being willing to say there's something I may not know, but I can get back to you.
Yeah, and really, they don't know everything, but they sure seem to believe they do when they spew this or that to us rather than, hey, I'll get right back to you. And you will get back to you. Folks out there, Treasurer Folwell, unlike some others, but we don't speak for them. We're 23 minutes past the hour here on the Big Talker FM. Again, Treasurer Dale Folwell, one of the best in the business, which is why he's been joining this program for the better part of 4 years, twice a month inside this 8 o'clock block here on Wednesdays. 23 minutes past the hour here on the Big Talker FM.
Saw a werewolf with a Chinese menu in his hand, walking through the streets of Soho in the rain.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE-certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Those aren't fireworks. The gang violence here in Wilmington has got to be stopped. As your city councilman, I'll give our law enforcement agencies the direction and support they need to make our streets, ball fields, and schools safe. While doing that, I'll also keep our small businesses open so they can do what they do best, work hard and be profitable. I'm Luke Waddell, I'm running for city council, and I ask for your vote. Paid for by the committee to elect Luke Waddell.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint and the co-host of Wake Up Our Faith, every Saturday and Sunday right here on Wilmington's Big Talker. We invite you to join with our nonprofit movement by participating in the Portable Faith Community. This is a $10 a month tax-deductible contribution, and you get access to daily encouragement, resources, as well as our prayer community. You can go to wakeupmyfaith.com to get subscribed and learn more. That's wakeupmyfaith.com.
Dana Lash.
You would rather have too much freedom to deal with, and that includes the freedom and the responsibility of making sure that your rights are protected, than too little. Imagine not having any of these rights. And then, you'd have more time on your hands probably, because the state wouldn't allow you to go out and make sure you could defend rights that no longer existed, because we would live under tyranny. So you'll always have this.
The Dana Show.
3 to 6 p.m. only on the Big Talker FM.
I'm State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better state. We are one of the fastest growing and most reviewed insurance agencies in Wilmington. That's because our customers love the personalized attention that we give to you. Let us help you get to a better state by visiting our website at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
All right, as we approach the halfway point of our program here this morning, Richard Battle will join us just after 9 o'clock. Also, Hannah Cox, the Foundation for Economic Education, in that third and final hour of our program. And just sort of to piggyback before we go to break as to the way in which Treasurer Folwell handles his role as a statewide elected official. You know, a couple of weeks back, we had a caller from Brunswick County who was citing his concerns about the American flag and the lack of etiquette for the flag when it was flying outside of Brunswick County schools, if it was flying outside of the schools. And I just want to reiterate that I'm extremely thankful to have the unique opportunity to engage folks 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. And it's even better when we're able to discuss for nearly 3 hours issues that are close to home, meaning local issues going on around our community, which we cover the 3 counties of New Hanover, Brunswick, Pender counties, and then bring a lot of the statewide officials in, or members of Congress as well. We've got plenty of input, of course, from you, the listener. That helps make the program what it is. And concerned parents who've been calling in and phoning in for the better part of the last couple of years since we've been on air. So we had a concerned citizen call in a couple of weeks back, had an issue with the American flag not being flown outside of our school buildings in Brunswick County, and when they were being flown, there was a lack of etiquette and the proper ways in which it should be flown. And concerned citizen calls in, and what do you know? One of the school board members was tuned in and immediately joined our conversation to try and address some of those concerns. And then, in fact, even promises to further engage in his constituents by hosting town hall meetings on a quarterly basis to continue the conversation. Well, we had a school board member in Brunswick County, Steve Barger. He called in after the concerned citizen phoned the show, admitted to receiving emails from the caller and others. And he says, listen, all right, you have an issue, that's fine, but let's now work together on solutions to these issues. Working for the people is finding solutions to issues and working together with constituents. Similarly to what we described up in Cabarrus County, right? Their Board of Education and their county decided that they were going to form a COVID task force that includes health officials, education officials, and yes, parents. And they laid down metrics, measurable, tangible things that we can see, read, understand, and we hit those measures, then we will move forward. That's the way it should work when it comes to those who work for us as elected officials in government, whether it be from local school board all the way on up to the swamp. How disconnected they are, it's a horse of a different color, as they say. All right, before we go to break, at 910-299-7535. Caller, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. A little off course here. I've been listening most of the morning, so I didn't get you the whole morning here. I was kind of talking to my son yesterday about just the craziness. I mean, just the whole anything. What do you want to call it? And I kind of told myself, Monty Python's getting a little offended, and he did know who Monty Python was, so he kind of went, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, because they're getting out joked." I said, "Well," and one of the headlines we were talking about was, you probably saw it yesterday, Ohio college student angry and scared after cisgender men, which is what me and you are, installed a radiator in their dorms, and they said, safe space, their dorm safe space. So I said, wait a minute, this solution's simple. I don't get this solution's simple because there's no litmus test to this mess, right? So all you do is go identify as a woman or a trans for the duration of the job while you're on the job, and then walk away. What are they going to say? Because as crazy as this stuff is, I always ask, what's the litmus test? What's the litmus test that me at 14 years old could not walk in a girl's bathroom with all these crazy rules? I mean, do I have to dress a certain way? Do I have to know you can't wear white after, certain days? What do I got to know? Can I run the quarter mile in high heels? I don't know. Can y'all please tell me? And when they say that's ridiculous, I'm saying, so there is no rule. It's just kind of like our border. Oh, it's not open border, but you can come in any way you want to. Well, that sounds like open border. No, it's not open border. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm missing all this stuff. Anyway, I kind of thought,
yeah,
I don't know. There's that Monty Python side of me that I want to just let loose and go, hey, I want to try this, and walk in there and go, I'm a female today. When they say something, I say, it's ma'am. You got it? It's ma'am. And I'm going to go work over here so y'all get over it. But anyway, it's crazy stuff.
Oh, and I thought, literally, I saw that pop up across my timeline yesterday, and I thought it was from the Babylon Bee. And I did not click on the bait, but now that you brought it up, I just did. And we'll pass that story along to, our listeners when we get back. Yes, apparently a student at some college, Oberlin College, was highly perturbed that a cisgender male, I'm not really sure, is that a straight white heterosexual? I'm not really sure what that actually means. Maybe we can get a definition of the word, and the definition of a word is different than the definition of a word. Didn't someone famously say that at some point? I have no idea. We're just lost in the sauce when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I'll bring it up just for what's and giggles. When we get back, an Oberlin County college student is highly perturbed that cisgender male maintenance workers were permitted to install radiators in a dorm that was reserved for women and transgendered persons. The cost of a college education. Lord help us. All right, we're 25 minutes in front of the hour. I'll bring you that story when we get back. Caller makes mention of it, and they made me click the bait. Smoke them if you got them. We'll be back.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. A House committee investigating the January 6th Capitol insurrection has voted unanimously to hold former White House aide Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress. The longtime ally of former President Donald Trump defied a subpoena for documents and testimony. Trump has aggressively tried to block the committee's work by directing Bannon not to answer questions while also suing the panel to try to prevent Congress from obtaining former White House documents. In Haiti, negotiations are stretching into a fourth day, seeking the return of 17 members of a U.S.-based missionary group kidnapped over the weekend by a gang that is demanding $1 million ransom per person. The group includes 5 children whose ages range from 8 months to 15 years, but a top Haitian official said yesterday that authorities are not clear whether the ransom amount includes them. 16 of the abductees are Americans and 1 Canadian. Back in the Cape Fear, thefts involving valuable metals are on the rise, and now some thieves are taking things one step further. They're stealing bronze flower vases from grave sites and selling them for scrap metal. Layla Price says someone stole the bronze vase off of her 10-year-old son's grave site in Oleander Memorial Gardens. Horton Iron and Metal says thieves often cut up the items they steal or flatten them beyond recognition to avoid detection. Oleander Memorial Garden released a statement which says a few bronze vases were stolen last week, and they hope area scrap metal dealers will report to authorities anyone trying to steal one as scrap metal. And do you need a flu shot? If so, they'll be available today at Wrightsville Beach Town Hall. The New Hanover County Health Department will be administering the flu shots from 10 o'clock this morning until 1 this afternoon as part of their community outreach program. The event is open to the public. You're asked to bring your photo ID and insurance card. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
I'm State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better state. We are one of the fastest growing and most reviewed insurance agencies in Wilmington. That's because our customers love the personalized attention that we give to you. Let us help you get to a better state by visiting our website at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Another spectacular day on tap all across the Cape Fear. We are expecting plenty of sunshine once again, and temperatures are going to be a bit warmer than where they've been the past few days as well. We'll top off in the upper 70s and the low 80s inland of the coast, and closer to the coastline, we are topping off in the low to middle 70s. But tonight, mostly clear skies in store for us again as temperatures fall to the middle and the upper 50s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. Twomenandatruck.com.
Tall and tan and young and lovely, the girl from Ipanema goes.
All right, here's the story that the caller made mention of before the break. A student at Oberlin College in Ohio described being scared and angry after the school announced a work crew would be installing radiators in a safe space dormitory for women and trans students, explaining the crew would likely be cisgender men. Oh, yeah, by the way, that was Slick Willie who provided the defining moment, of his rationalization to the grand jury, as to why he wasn't lying when he said, to his top aides that there's nothing going on between us in respect to Monica. It depends on what the meaning of the word is. If is means is and never has been, that is not. That is one thing. If it means there is none, that was a completely true statement. Now, if someone had asked me on that day, are you having any kind of sexual relations with Miss Lewinsky? That is, asked me a question in the present tense, I would have said no. It would have been completely true. So the distinction between is and was, of course, I'm all confused at this point, and we live in confusing times. So I guess it's I'm right along with you. I was angry, scared, and confused, and It is what it is here. I mean, I'm just reading this story for you. Why didn't the college complete the installation over the summer when the building was empty? Why couldn't they tell us precisely when the workers would be there? Why were they only notifying us the day before the installation was due to begin? Oberlin student Peter Frey Witzer wrote in an op-ed published in the college newspaper. The student said he grew concerned because he had not heard of the installation plans before a school email was sent on October 7th. He explained the crew would likely be cisgender men entering Baldwin Cottage, which is home to a safe space for women and transgendered persons. Quote, in general, I'm very averse to people entering my personal space. This anxiety was compounded by the fact that the crew would be strangers, and they were more than likely to be cisgender men. And the work crew eventually showed up at the dorm, and he immediately saw that they were all men. And it was clear that the college had not made a special request that male workers not be allowed onto the upper floors of Baldwin Cottage. Frey Witzer asked a representative of the college, who he called Polo Man because he was wearing a neat polo, who accompanied the crew, probably the director of the maintenance department, to make sure that no one was offended or hurt or fearful of the men coming to change the radiator. He asked if the crew could reject getting the radiator installed. And, Polo Man apparently said no. Well, and guess what? The student left for class, and then the work crew came in and made the dorm improvements. And by the time I had come back, they appeared to be done, though Polo Man warned me that they would return to check the insulation. Sure enough, they were back the next day. I felt mildly violated and a little peeved. Frey Witzer said he asked how other students in the dorm felt about the work crew, with many complaining about the noise and the mess that the construction project created. I understand, of course, that installations like this are routine. The college needs to improve its facilities, and who am I to stand in the way of that? After all, I get a brand spanking new radiator right in time for the cold weather. But why not finish the project during the 4 months of the summer semester when the building was unoccupied? So this has made the rounds on social media. As I said yesterday, or just a moment ago, I saw the article. I'm like, it's not worth the click. But you, the caller, pointed me in that direction. And we will never get the last 6 minutes back that we spent describing the uneasy feeling of maintenance workers coming into a building to fix your broken radiator ahead of winter weather. And here we are. And we are all dumber for listening to that story. Oh, and we know how that'll get taken out of context and twisted and turned. Just look at what the Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson has been dealing with over the last couple of weeks. I still have not heard from a opponent of the Lieutenant Governor who has ostracized him for this, that, and the other. Based on I still have not had or heard one of those officials come forward and defend what he has called filth being introduced into classrooms across our country and libraries within our state for children as young as elementary school aged kids. Waiting for that response, right? I mean, because they love to get into the word salad sort of arguments and twisting the tables and pointing the fingers, because when it comes to the substance, it's very hard to defend their points of view. They never want to get into those sorts of conversations. And that's what the Lieutenant Governor made mention of. Listen, I'm here to defend the constitutional rights of all people, no matter what you look like, where you come from, who you sleep with, what you do, behind closed doors. I don't care. I may not agree with it. I don't care. But look at the material that kids have access to. It's filth, particularly when it comes to elementary school kids. And if you can come here and defend this, then we would love to hear your explanation on it. No one's answered his calls to surprise. 910-299-7535. Caller, you're with us. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great.
So my question is, they have a There's.
Don't
I'm
ask.
sorry.
Just don't ask.
There is not that many tradespeople in the trades force. So who else is going to come in and fix a radiator?
Don't ask these logical questions.
And then you're going to complain that you're cold when you go to the bathroom. So pick a side, would you?
I mean, really, this is the stuff these are the problems of the world today? Yeah, holy moly.
If this is the only thing that people have to worry about in their lives, then
you got it pretty dang good.
You have it really good. Absolutely.
Hey, thanks a lot for the call, man. 910-299-7535. And yeah, well, I'm sure we could have got the, I don't know. We have to go to break right now. I have to collect myself, and we'll be back with a more substantive segment before Richard Battle joins the program. It's a wild, wild world we're living in, and we're just trying to make some sense out of it all. Again, you got to have a pretty good standard of living if these are the things you're complaining about day to day. Or maybe, this was done to create some attraction and attention towards you. Probably, makes a pretty good case as to why this has gone viral, with the understanding that we put something out there that sort of we know is a little just weird when it comes to feeling uneasy about someone coming into your dorm and fixing your hair. All right, we're done. We're done. It's over. Omit the last 15 minutes from your brain, and we'll all be a little better off.
I don't know why I let that mean woman make me a fool. She took all my money, wrecked my new car.
Hey, I'm Yael Osowski.
And I'm David Clement.
We're the host of Consumer Choice Radio, broadcasting every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Consumer Choice Radio is a weekly conversation featuring the latest news, interviews, and expert analysis that covers consumer topics from around the world.
ConsumerChoiceRadio.com.
Here, Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catenacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
I'm K.O. Davis from K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree, and I want to be your tree man.
When your trees need cut, 2 letters to know. One is a K, the other is an O. K.O.
Tree man.
Proper trimming is the most important thing that you can do, so don't just hire anybody to do it. You need someone that knows what they're doing.
K.O.
Call the professionals at K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree and visit KOTrees.com.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
As Wilmington's leader in restorative and regenerative medicine, the Frank Institute specializes in health optimization. Simply put, we use in-depth evaluations and lab testing to determine the best treatments for each patient. So whether you're suffering from an unseen hormonal imbalance or a simple vitamin deficiency, the Frank Institute is ready to get you back to better living. Call us at 910-679-8534 or fill out our symptom survey online at frankinstitute.com. Because at the Frank Institute, you live, we help.
Well, hey, y'all, it's Holly Brewer
and Amy Ludwig and Kristen Ludwig
from Just Think, the podcast. The podcast where we don't want to tell you what to think. We just challenge you to do it. We're happy to have some of our episodes featured right here on 106.7 The Big Talker on Saturdays at 11 a.m. So we hope you join us in the conversation and most importantly, just think.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs and have some fun.
I don't feel sorry for people who are living in million-dollar houses and are complaining about people like me trying to take care of everyone.
I am sorry. Sometimes it hurts so badly I must cry.
All right, now that our heads are screwed on straight, ready to highlight some of the news coming out of our area, as we made mention of in the last hour at around this time. Well, apparently the unelected Health and Human Services Board here in New Hanover County will be holding a special meeting to discuss possibly lifting the countywide mask mandate. Well, thank the Lord. Well, when will that meeting be held? Well, next month. We're in the 20th day of October, 2021, and next month they will be discussing the countywide mask mandate, the only one that I know in place across southeastern North Carolina. Now, there are other mandates when it comes to the schools, this, that, and the other. So we've got a rate of positive COVID tests here at 5.1% here in New Hanover County. By the way, anytime there's good news surrounding any sort of Rona-related information, it never seems to make headlines. But all we know, as we've seen for the last 2 years, anytime a generally healthy person succumbs to the virus, or a mom, school teacher who may not even contracted the virus in school, anytime something like that occurs, it's blasted all over the news, and it goes viral on the many news and social media websites you consume day to day. And I get the discussion. What was it, late August? And for the first time, a lot of folks were like, all right, well, who are these people on the New Hanover County Health and Human Services Board? And I actually had an emailer yesterday kind of echo some of the things people were saying back in late August. How are these folks experts to decide whether we should be wearing masks or not? Or are we just following the talking points that we hear elsewhere? And I'm sure, as the emailer made mention of, I'm sure these people are all very qualified in their points of focus, meaning within their careers. But it seems odd to him and many that an optometrist, a veterinarian, a psychologist, a social worker who are making and have made the final decision on all of this. Then county follows suit, followed by the schools, and basically the Board of Education made mention that, we're not doing anything until the county does something here in New Hanover. We know that in Pender County, they've gone optional, and it's been that way for 10 days now, and I'm not sure. I haven't heard much news as far as any sort of outbreaks or anything like that concerning our kids and the mask optional way of life in Pender. Well, and as I highlighted last hour, elsewhere around the state, they've taken a very different approach when it comes to allowing input, providing some openness, transparency, and a set of consumable metrics that they've followed when it comes to guidance on any decisions made that impact children and others within their respective county. Cabarrus County School Board announced Monday they'll go mask optional beginning on the 26th, and they laid out the metrics based on a task force that was created in their county that helped them make the decision. And the task force made up of health professionals, school district professionals, and parents. So the county decides, all right, the governor has given us sort of, the reins, not the reins used to whip, Haitians at the southern border, but gave us the reins to make decisions. And the district decided that based on the task force, what they've laid out, that if 3 of the 4 metrics are hit, then we'll move forward with the loosening of some of the mandates in terms of percent positive rates that they have in their county, the number of positive cases, the percentage of students who are newly positive, the number of kids who are quarantined. And they've hit 3 out of the 4 metrics, and then they've decided to move forward with their decision. So it's just amazing to me, the different approach that people have taken, and we've seen it on a bigger scale when it comes to places like Texas, Florida, elsewhere. We've been sort of in the middle the entire time, this little gray area, due in large part to the fact that we have a Democrat governor known as the King of Tyranny, who only moved forward with the reopening of certain businesses after lawsuits and legislative proposals pressured him to do so. And then he jumped on the camera, just days before a ruling that wouldn't have gone in his favor in the courts, or just a day before, the legislature was getting ready to pass a law challenging his decisions. And then he jumped in front of the camera. I'm looking for all of you great people out there. I'm going to give you your freedom back and your ability to conduct business inside your places of business. So it's just amazing, again, the differences that we have seen across the country and, within our state. One county decides that, we're going to create a task force. We're going to lay things out for everyone to see. We're going to get input from all stakeholders with measurable results to provide some clarity for our people. And then we have the approach that we've taken here in New Hanover County. Just to enjoy giving you the compare and contrast here on the Big Talker FM, to provide you the information, which is why, Treasurer Folwell, of course, is so complimentary of what we try to do day to day. Here's the information. Yeah, we've got our unapologetic opinions, but let's provide you the information so you can embrace, consume, let it marinate, and then form your own way in which you go about looking at the world that we live in. We've got 1 hour to go before I part ways. I'm going to say, I'd be lying if I wasn't excited for the hour to go by faster than usual, because we're headed up the mountain to Boone, North Carolina, right after the show wraps up here today. And why am I doing that? Well, we've got a nationally televised college football game to go to tonight at The Rock, Kid Brewer Stadium. Appalachian State plays host to my Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, the number 14 team in the nation. The mountains meet the coast. We've had this, game circled on our calendar since the schedule came out. Winner, top spot in the Sun Belt Conference East Division, puts us in the driver's seat as we look, to move through a potential undefeated season right now. Coastal at 6-0. I believe Appalachian State has 2 losses under their belt, one last week to Louisiana, week 1 at the University of Miami. Should be a good one tonight, and a packed house at what they call The Rock, up the mountain in Boone. 7:30 kickoff tonight if your points due south of Charlotte, Southport, Bolivia. You can pick up our radio portion of the broadcast on the Myrtle Beach talk station, 99.5 WRNN. All pumped up for tonight's game as the Chants are coming to the mountains. The Beach Chickens are getting ready to knock off Joseph and the Mountaineers. Our friend Richard Battle from the Lone Star State, he joins us after the break.
It's all about where you going, no matter where you've been. Let's go, go, go.
keeping Wilmington informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Well, hey, y'all, it's Holly Brewer.
And Amy Ludwig. And Kristen Ludwig.
From Just Think, the podcast. The podcast where we don't want to tell you what to think. We just challenge you to do it. We're happy to have some of our episodes featured right here on 106.7 The Big Talker on Saturdays at 11 a.m. So we hope you join us in the conversation and most importantly, just think.
By many Americans.
People couldn't get dishwashers and furniture and treadmills delivered on time, not to mention all sorts of other things. So why is
the tragedy of the treadmill that's delayed?
Right.
Meanwhile, the crisis worsens. A record number of ships now stacked up off the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says his state has ports, adding that it's crucial that Americans have access to necessities, not to mention the holiday gifts that they'll go shopping for.
And if it's because ships are sitting off the coast somewhere else and they can be rerouted here and we can get all those shelves stocked, then we want to be a part of that solution.
Southwest Airlines changing its stance on a COVID vaccine mandate. The carrier now says employees will be able to stay on the job beyond a December 8th vaccination deadline, provided they apply for a religious or medical exemption. 21 Chicago police officers on unpaid leave for failure to report their vaccination status to the city. In New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio set to announce a vaccine mandate for municipal employees, including first responders. Facing a soaring COVID infection and death rate, Russian President Vladimir Putin has endorsed a plan to give all Russian workers a week off. Watching Wall Street this morning, stock futures are mixed. Right now, Dow futures are down 19 points, while NASDAQ futures are 14 points higher. S&P futures off a fraction. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Do you know how much you're really paying for life insurance through work? I can almost guarantee you're overpaying for limited coverage. I'm Joel Clark, a Select Quote agent for over 20 years. My clients are shocked to learn how expensive life insurance at work really is because of a rate that's driven up by unhealthy people. Why pay more when you don't have to? For over 35 years, Select Quote has helped people save 50% or more by shopping highly rated insurance carriers. I even found a 40-year-old man with high blood pressure, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for only $19 a month. Don't wait. Workplace open enrollment is here. Let Select Quote save you money and get you the coverage you need to protect your family.
For your free quote in just minutes, call 1-800-659-8080. That's 1-800-659-8080. 1-800-659-8080. Or go to SelectQuote.com.
Full details on example policy and carrier ratings at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Price could vary by health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
The war on fossil fuels escalates. A UN-backed study argues the world needs to cut by more than half its use of coal, oil, and natural gas in the coming decade to meet climate change goals.
The report published by the UN Environment Programme found that while governments have made ambitious pledges to curb greenhouse gas emissions, they're still planning to extract double the amount of fossil fuels in 2030 than what would be consistent with the 2015 Paris Climate Accord's goal of keeping the global temperature rise below 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit. It said even the less ambitious goal of capping global warming at 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit by the end of the century compared to pre-industrial times would be overshot. I'm Zaria Shakli.
At least 14 people killed in a bombing in Syria's capital. Authorities say there were 2 bombs attached to a bus carrying Syrian troops in the heart of Damascus during today's busy morning rush. News and analysis at townhall.com. A Fox News Channel host, the latest celebrity to test positive for the coronavirus.
Neil Cavuto says he is grateful that he has been vaccinated against COVID-19, especially now since he has tested positive for the disease. The anchor made the disclosure in a news release from his network. It says Cavuto tested positive at the end of his show Monday night. While he was absent from his show the following day, he says in the statement that he feels fortunate because he has several health problems, including multiple sclerosis, open heart surgery, and a history of cancer. cancer. Cavuto says doctors told him with those medical issues he would be in a far more dire situation had he not been vaccinated. He says his statement to viewers is a simple one: get vaccinated for yourself and everyone around you. I'm Oscar Wells Gabriel.
Efforts continue to free 17 hostages, most of them Americans, held by kidnappers in Haiti, demanding $1 million for each captive. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
All right, as we move into our final hour here this morning on the Big Talker, 106.7 FM, a gorgeous morning here throughout the coast of the Carolinas, and temperatures are going to warm up today. We'll be around 80. Nice, comfortable day as it's been for the last week or so. This is one of the best times of the year when it comes to the weather. And really, you've got 7 out of the 12 months that are extremely comfortable and enjoyable. And then 2 months of, stay in the house, let the tourists spend their money and hit the beaches, and we'll just enjoy the AC. And then the winter, if you want to call it a winter, I know some folks are a little chillier than others, but when the temperatures are 50, 55 for the high, I'm okay with it. But I'll take the 70 to 85 degree range all day, every day, like we've been enjoying over the last week or so. Headed up to the mountains after the broadcast here today. We've got some college football tonight and really looking forward to it. But before we do that, our friend Richard Battle joins us weekly during this 9 o'clock block here on Wednesdays. From the Lone Star State, author of Navigating Life's Journey, Common Sense in Uncommon Times. His book we refer to often when he joins the program, and he's been on a bit of a roll over the last couple of weeks. In this sort of pull your hair out news cycle that we get day to day with all of the frustrating things that are going on, and by no fault of our own in many cases when it comes to the rise in prices, the inability to find workers to perform duties to keep your business up and running. This is all done due to government overreach, mandates, and the inability to provide openness and transparency when it comes to the pandemic, none of which we've been responsible for. And now all the blame getting placed on us, particularly if we've expressed hesitation to some of the things that those in charge are telling us we need to do in order to move forward. So Richard has been trying to spin his segment into a more positive way of looking at life and the things that we enjoy day to day, because there's still much to be proud of and much to be fulfilled with going outside of the news cycle, outside of government and the politicians who run the country or your local school board. And we're going to continue that here this morning with our friend Richard Battle. Richard, it's a pleasure, as always, my friend, and good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Joe. Thank you so much for having us with you again.
So with that said, what's sort of on your mind here this morning to provide us a little inspiration, motivation, glass half full way of looking at the world we live in today?
Well, this is a discussion about what great things could you accomplish if you only had a break in life. And it's a chapter out of Navigating Life's Journey, and it honors the greatest speaker I ever heard and the greatest speech I ever heard, and he became a friend and a mentor to me, Louis Timberlake, who gave the speech, How to Get the Breaks in Life. And there's 5 things we'll hit real briefly, and if people want to make notes, they can just write on a piece of paper the letters BREAK, and we'll go through them, and we'll hopefully share some ideas on how people can be more positive and attain more of their dreams and goals.
Well, with that said, and using that acronym BREAK in this sense, it starts with you, right? You internally and have to look in the mirror when you wake up each day to want to put yourself in position to make that break happen in life, where then you can take advantage of it.
Well, yes, the letter B is burning desire. And what happens to most of us, and I've had it happen to me sometimes, we end up getting discouraged and we can quit an effort. But the people who become the most successful burn through that discouragement and overcome it and achieve. And that's what we have to do, is pursue relentlessly what we want to do through the failures and obstacles. And if we look at people like Walt Disney and Steven Spielberg and Mark Cuban, Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, we think of them as extremely successful, but what we usually don't see are how many failures they went through before they became successful. And the reason we see them is they didn't quit. And I've quit some things when I was younger, and I have regrets from that, and regret pains are much greater than failure pains.
And with that said, this also reiterates something that you and I know both believe in the fact that this country, allows through this entrepreneurial, sort of way of thinking, this capitalistic society, that you're able to fail, work on some of the kinks that may have not worked out for you, and then continue to move forward. And, the land of second chances, as they say, that allows you to overcome some of those failures, to continue to strive for what you want and how you want it, so long as, you continue to be relentless in your pursuit of those goals.
Yes, and the second letter, the R, is reverisco, which is a Latin word which means I flourish in adversity. And we all are going to experience adversity at different times in our lives. And the question is, do we let it define us, or are we able to work through it and continue to overcome that adversity and move forward?
So does that mean, the idea that getting comfortable, being uncomfortable is, something that you should learn, and a skill set that you should, strive for when we talk about some of the adversity that you'll face, whether that be personally at home or, in the professional world?
Well, absolutely, because if we're going to become better at anything we want to do, we have to become uncomfortable. We have to get out of our comfort zone in making the attempt. If we want to remain comfortable, that's okay, but don't expect any great strides in doing so. And when we get out of our comfort zone and begin that pursuit, the E in break is enthusiasm. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said, nothing great was ever accomplished without enthusiasm. And so if we're not enthusiastic about our pursuit of our dreams, then we won't overcome the adversity. We won't have the desire to overcome the obstacles that we have.
And that doesn't mean you're always going to wake up on the right side of the bed. But when you talk about a long-term goal, there are steps in which you need to take, in which you need to remain enthusiastic. Rome, as they say, wasn't built in a day, and there may be setbacks, and you may take 2 steps back before you can go forward. But remain enthusiastic and with a positive attitude to, of course, keep that sort of mindset in the right frame, so you can reach and achieve, the things that you lay out for yourself.
Yes, and that's the A in break, is a positive attitude, because if you don't believe positively that you can achieve something, you can't. Harvey Mackay said positive thinking is more than just a tagline. It changes the way we behave. Teddy Roosevelt said it, believe you can, and you're halfway there. And so we have to have a positive attitude, and we cannot achieve anything positively with a negative attitude. And as I tell people, the 6 best words that you can say is I can, I will, and then I did.
But Richard, in a time where people are surrounded by negativity and people trying to divide with certain tactics, whether it be in government or whether it be in certain socioeconomic circles, in that, well, you come from this. This is what you're going to be, and nothing more than that. How can people, keep that positive attitude when, well, they may be struggling to put food on their table, or they don't have, a mentor or even a parent in their home? How do we, have young people specifically sort of, foster that positive way in looking at things day to day?
Well, there are great stories of people who have achieved and overcome obstacles and adversity and things all over the place. And one of the things that we have to do, and it's the K in break, is we have to continue to develop our knowledge. Knowledge is a lifelong learning experience. And if we ever quit obtaining knowledge, then we will limit ourselves in the future, and we'll be lesser and lesser capable as the world advances. And we have the wisdom of the world at our fingertips. Unlike any other time in history, we can research things from our homes that we used to have to go to a library or go to a university to find, or may not find at all. And developing that knowledge and combining it with our enthusiasm and attitude and our desire and overcoming adversity helps us to create the break that we can do something if we execute those.
And with that said, Richard, it's amazing, when we talk about equipping yourself with the knowledge. And again, we go back to, the early stages of one's development, how we've shied away from, encouraging people to gain that knowledge through critical thinking skills, through the implementation of the fundamentals when it comes to just basically learning how to read and what that can do when it comes to the knowledge that you're able to consume, basic literacy. And we're talking about very basic things that can help set you up, to get that break you need in life to achieve your goals.
Well, absolutely. And it's a pretty proven fact that to help yourself succeed, if you'll complete high school, you don't have a kid till you get married, are two of the things that help people succeed. And so often we get things out of sequence in life. And if someone's done that, it's okay. They can still achieve things, but it makes it a little more difficult. And there are many people, there are legions who haven't gone to college, who may not have completed high school and got GEDs, but because they executed the break, they became successful. If you look at the late Rush Limbaugh, he had one semester of college, for example, but he self-educated himself to know the things that he needed to know and wanted to know to become successful.
And Richard, with that being said, as we try and understand, the life around us and try to navigate, those complicated things at times, oftentimes, it's let's keep it simple, stupid, as my friend Lenny Simpson, has said so often, and that we tend to complicate things with all these different thoughts and stresses and anxieties. But if we're able to stick to very simple ways of, moving forward, that ultimately, could be the most fulfilling way when, we define this idea of happiness in our lives.
Well, that's true. And too often we let past troubles hold us back, or worrying about the future hold us back and not take advantage of the present. A friend of mine's late aunt said, worry is interest paid on a debt before it's due. And worry will inhibit us from achieving what we want to in the future, because most of the time what we're worrying about never happens. Now, it's good to be thinking about possible obstacles and things of that nature, but thinking about them and preparing to overcome them is different than worrying about them and letting that worry inhibit what you're going to do.
Our friend Richard Battle joins us with some timeless messages that he uses through his life and has written at length about. And you can find more about some of the books that he has published at richardbattle.com. He joins us each week just after 9 o'clock Eastern Time to shine some light on things that aren't necessarily discussed day to day that help us try and win the day. And that's the way you got to kind of look at it, right, Richard? I mean, yeah, you may have some long-term plans and goals for yourself, your family, those surround you, but you got to win today in order to get to tomorrow, to continue to climb up that ladder, so to speak.
Well, absolutely, and I'll use the quote from the late great Yogi Berra, who applied it only to baseball, but I believe it applies to everything in life when he said baseball's 90% mental and the other half is physical. Well, that's true in almost everything. So the mental aspects and what we feed into our system. We can't achieve positive results if we're feeding negativity into our system. We have to feed positivity in to get positivity out.
Makes you wonder, huh, Richard, why everything around you is so negative day to day. Why the stories that you see in the news are so negative. Why they aren't filled with positive examples, as you just highlighted this morning, of people who have come from nothing and have achieved so much despite hurdles that have been put in their way. In many cases, not by the fault of their own, by in some cases what they look like and where they come from, and how people have still been able to overcome that in this country. You have to wonder why those sorts of stories are not magnified and told, particularly to our young people each day.
Well, I think that's true, and the world promotes discouragement and tries to bring people down and bring people to where they just watch the news and they can see train wrecks of people and hopefully feel better about what they're going through. But it's such a negative situation. And what we could accomplish individually and in this world if we had more positive news. I mean, there's no way to measure how much positivity we could create if we were more positive.
So many, stories, like you said, countless stories and times throughout our history where people have overcome some of the odds. I mean, today, given the quality of life, the access to information, Richard, as you said, through our fingertips, it's amazing that many people still fall into that sort of trap that is laid out there for us, for various reasons to continue this divide and continue this idea that, we can't. Well, yes, we can. It just takes, some practice and, maybe two steps back in order to move forward, utilizing some of these basic principles that we just highlighted with you this morning.
Yes, it doesn't take very long for us to find someone who's much worse off than we are or have been. And so when we focus on ourselves and what negativity we may be experiencing, it depresses us. And we need to focus on, hey, it's not as bad for me as it's been for others. I can do this, and proceed down that road and creating that break and achieving the best life that you can.
If you'd like to know more about Richard, what he does and why he does it, go to his website at richardbattle.com. Richard, thanks so much for the time again this morning, and we look forward to our conversation next week.
Joe, thank you. Go Chance, and God bless America.
We're 22 minutes past the hour. Great to have Richard as a friend and as a contributor to our program. Weekly, we need middle of the work week, middle of the broadcast week. We need some of that positive vibes, given all the other ridiculous stuff that we highlight day to day. Working on being selfless rather than selfish, working on ourselves. Good things happen to the unit around you and the people that you influence and work alongside or sleep next to day to day. These are the types of things to help move that ball forward. All that other stuff, a lot of it out of our control. We want to be informed. We want to understand what's going on. Well, there's nothing wrong with taking a break from a lot of that stuff, on a daily basis, because it does kind of bring you back in. As Michael Corleone once said, every time I try to get out, they bring me back in. Well, we'll bring you back in about 10 minutes with our friend Hannah Cox from the Foundation for Economic Education. Now, she says anyone with an ounce of common sense, navigating life's journey, common sense in uncommon times, book we refer to with Richard quite often. Anyone with an ounce of common sense knew lockdowns would lead to more deaths of despair, abuse, and isolation. This wasn't hard to predict. Why was that ignored for the better part of 19, 20 months? 96,000 Americans died from drug overdoses over March 2020 to March 2021. Another fallout of life under lockdown. We'll talk about that story at fee.org just after 9:30 here this morning as we get set to wrap up, the final 35 minutes or so of this broadcast. Wednesday morning, October 20th, 2021. Call-in number is 910-299-7535.
I step off the train, I'm walking down your street again, and past your door, but you don't live there anymore.
I am State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better place. Visit us online at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Mic check, mic check. It's Yael Osowski here, Deputy Director of the Consumer Choice Center. You'll hear me every Friday at 9:30 on the Mornings with Joe Catenacci Show, giving you the latest in consumer news, analysis, and political topics to make sure you get your consumer fix. Then hear me and my radio partner in crime, David Clement, on the Consumer Choice Radio Show, Saturdays at 10. Only here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
If you're anywhere near Oak Island, come check out Seaside Jewelers at 8801 East Oak Island Drive. They're on Oak Island. You're going to find the latest in Oak Island lighthouses, nautical charms, pendants. You're going to find bracelets, turtle charms, anything in the jewelry genre you need, you can get there. And if they don't have it, they'll find a way to get it for you. Come check out Seaside Jewelers at 8801 East Oak Island Drive. And if you tell them you heard it on the Big Talker FM, an extra 10% off your purchase, but only at Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive. The lowest prices in town. Come check us out today.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Those aren't fireworks. The gang violence here in Wilmington has got to be stopped. As your city councilman, I'll give our law enforcement agencies the direction and support they need to make our streets, ball fields, and schools safe. While doing that, I'll also keep our small businesses open so they can do what they do best, work hard and be profitable. I'm Luke Waddell, I'm running for city council, and I ask for your vote. Paid for by the committee to elect Luke Waddell.
I took a walk around the world to ease my troubled mind. I left my body lying somewhere in the sands of time. But I watched the world float to the dark side of the moon. I feel there's nothing I can do. Yeah.
All right, as we get set to move into the bottom of the hour news break. Again, as I mentioned, Hannah Cox with the Foundation for Economic Education going to join us. In addition to that terrible news that many of us predicted would be the case, and some of the long-term consequences of shutting down things for 20 months. Still not getting a handle on how this is going to shake out moving through the months and years ahead. Well, we're getting a little taste of that right now across the board. Another topic Hannah touched on through her social media feed, which I follow, and she, again, spits the fire that many of us desire when it comes to the news of the day. She has some thoughts on this decision by the Department of Justice to work with law enforcement agencies across the state and the FBI to investigate, threats and acts of violence. They claim that these acts of violence have skyrocketed across the country when it comes to school board meetings. They haven't really provided any, solid evidence as to the acts of violence that they're going to be investigating and looking at. We've seen what has happened in places like Loudoun County, Virginia, where a dad is basically thrown in jail because he's completely frustrated with the fact that his daughter was sexually assaulted inside a locker room by, a transgender apparently or whatever. And now that has led to one of the school board members resigning, the superintendent issuing an apology. This guy thrown in jail and everything thrown at him. And then the FBI or the DOJ announces that, well, the FBI is going to be involved in investigating the quote-unquote threats. So you get 3 minutes a month to speak to your elected officials, and you express frustrations and issues that you may have with some of the things going on within our public schools, and now you're going to be investigated. Maybe a little overreach. I think Hannah has some thoughts on that, and, well, frankly, does not have many positive things to say about the Bureau. And she's no fan of Donald Trump, but highlighted the fact that, well, one thing Trump has done over the last couple of years was open people's eyes, particularly those who have always defended the Bureau and their tactics, and now opening their eyes to, the corruption and the overreach, particularly within the high levels of the top law enforcement agency in the land. We'll talk with Hannah Cox of the Foundation for Economic Education, fee.org, their website. They put out great material every day. Hannah, her colleague Brad Palumbo, among others. We look forward to our conversation. She comes to you from the city of Atlanta when we get back here on the Big Talker FM.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. A House committee investigating the January 6th Capitol insurrection has voted unanimously to hold former White House aide Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress. The longtime ally of former President Donald Trump defied a subpoena for documents and testimony. Trump has aggressively tried to block the committee's work by directing Bannon not to answer questions, while also suing the panel to try to prevent Congress from obtaining former White House documents. In Haiti, negotiations are stretching into a fourth day, seeking the return of 17 members of a U.S.-based missionary group kidnapped over the weekend by a gang that is demanding $1 million ransom per person. The group includes 5 children whose ages range from 8 months to 15 years, but a top Haitian official said yesterday that authorities are not clear whether the ransom amount includes them. 16 of the abductees are Americans and 1 Canadian. Back in the Cape Fear, thefts involving valuable metals are on the rise, and now some thieves are taking things one step further. They're stealing bronze flower vases from grave sites and selling them for scrap metal. Layla Price says someone stole the bronze vase off of her 10-year-old son's grave site in Oleander Memorial Gardens. Horton Iron and Metal says thieves often cut up the items they steal or flatten them beyond recognition to avoid detection. Oleander Memorial Garden released a statement which says a few bronze vases were stolen last week, and they hope area scrap metal dealers will report to authorities anyone trying to steal one as scrap metal. And do you need a flu shot? If so, they'll be available today at Wrightsville Beach Town Hall. The New Hanover County Health Department will be administering the flu shots from 10 o'clock this morning until 1 this afternoon as part of their community outreach program. The event is open to the public. You're asked to bring your photo ID and insurance card. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with the Storm Track 3 forecast. Another spectacular day on tap all across the Cape Fear. We are expecting plenty of sunshine once again, and temperatures are going to be a bit warmer than where they've been the past few days as well. We'll top off in the upper 70s and the low 80s inland of the coast, and closer to the coastline, we are topping off in the low to middle 70s. But tonight, mostly clear skies in store for us again as temperatures fall to the middle and the upper 50s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
25 minutes to go here on the Big Talker FM as we move towards the top of the hour. Rounding out our Wednesday broadcast here this morning, Hannah Cox with the Foundation for Economic Education joins us once or twice a month to highlight some of the news of the day and the ridiculousness that we see, particularly within our government. And it's unbelievable that some lend an ear to the case that many make that we need more government, more control, and more of our money to fix many of the issues, Hannah, that have been in our country long before you and I were even walking planet Earth. It's amazing how this argument of more nationalized, centralized control is the way to go. Good morning, Miss Hannah Cox.
Good morning. What do they say the definition of ignorance is? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? That's us, definitionally.
I mean, and many could make the case that this has been purposely done, to us, the American people, that they've wanted to dumb down the masses for a long time through, public education and otherwise to, basically convince us that they're smarter than us, that they know better than us, and they and only they can provide us, again, the solutions to the problems that we face.
Yeah, I think that's right. I was just writing an article this morning, again, on this big healthcare component under the massive reconciliation bill that's still kind of floating around out there. We're waiting to see what's going to happen. Probably it'll get voted on at the end of the month. But ultimately, when you look at these healthcare provisions, what they're trying to push through, they're terrible ideas, right? They're more of the same things that have broken our healthcare system and have really wrecked it over the past 100 years. It's more government control. It's giving the insurance companies more control. It's going to raise rates. It's going to lead to less innovation. There's so many bad things under these proposals they put forth, and I'm reading through them and I'm just kind of shaking my head because I think everybody can agree, right? And this is one thing we have to be better about as libertarians or as Republicans is recognizing that the problems people are mad about, we share, right? We're mad about the healthcare system too. It's terrible. Nobody in our country thinks our healthcare system is functioning well. But the left continues to put forth ideas that are basically more of the same things that created the problems in the first place. And we do a really good job of saying no to that. But what we don't do is come in and then have really good alternative proposals or help people understand that this isn't a capitalist free market healthcare system that we currently have. And if we were to have one, it would function in a way that actually drove prices down, that increased the supply, that had a faster development of new medicines and technology, a lot more innovation. And there are some really great proposals, things like direct primary care, certificate of need laws. There's a lot of things that we can be moving forward, especially even at the state level, that actually would help us get better or closer to a free market system. But we've got to be really diligent, I think, about carrying that message and saying, you know what, you're right about this problem. I agree with you. I think the ideas you have for how you want to solve it are misguided. I think they would actually compound the problems, but here are some alternative solutions that I think might address the problem that you care about, right? We've got to kind of be evangelists. We've got to sort of be, I'm a pastor's kid, so I was raised door knocking and talking to people. And I think that's what we have to do in this movement is we have to meet people where they are, and we have to have answers to the problems that they're facing.
Well, with that, you mentioned, the Republicans and their inability to make that case as they try and just kind of stand in the way and let's be in opposition, but not provide any sort of, clear-cut, solutions to, the problems and issues that we can all agree on, particularly related to healthcare. But and you and I are no big fan of the two-party system, but it's that two-party system that controls the way, which makes it very hard for other folks who may have, very pointed solutions to be heard and to have influence because of the way sort of this is set up at this point.
That's absolutely right. We definitely have a system that has been rigged against independent candidates, against third-party candidates, and it's been that way for decades. It always kind of makes me laugh when people say, well, obviously libertarians aren't very popular, you'd win more elections. Libertarians don't not win elections because they're not popular. They can't get on the ballot because the two parties have rigged the system against any competitors. So it kind of makes me giggle a little bit, although it's very not funny what they've done. But yeah, it's difficult to really get our people in there and make a difference in that way. I will say though, I've been a libertarian for all of my political career. I've been working in politics since 2014. And most of my time in politics, I've spent working at the state level, right? I haven't gone to Congress. I haven't worked federally. Thank God. That would be a nightmare. But I've been able to work locally and at the state level. And you can still get a lot done at the state level, I've found. You will find there are Democrats and Republicans who will work with you on a lot of key issues. You can build coalitions. You can organize people. You can help elevate voices of those who are impacted by policies. And I've had a lot of success with getting things done going that route. And I think that's what's exciting about healthcare is that actually there's a lot that can be done at the state and local level where things are still easier to impact. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can get the candidates you might want to see elected. But I think that if you're a persuasive person, you can still go and meet with your representatives and help elevate the voices of others and help move the needle there. It's typically a lot easier to get there physically, and it's a lot easier to make your voice heard because it's just happening at a much smaller level. And the truth is that a lot of American citizens are really not that active in their political system. Like I see a lot of people talking about how Facebook is the public square. It's like, no, it's not. Like the public square is at your local courthouse. It's at your state legislature. And if you actually want to participate in it, I would love that. I would love to see more Americans actually get off their couches and go actually get involved in the political processes and systems because we need it. And when people do that, we can still affect really great change. I actually gave a speech recently at a Students for Liberty conference about this research from Harvard that shows you only need to activate 3.5% of the population on a given political movement before you start to see a sea change. And they've studied all these political movements in history, and they found that no movement failed to achieve its goals once it hit that 3.5% threshold. And they found also that the very most effective way of moving change forward in a society is civil disobedience. So it's not that hard to affect change. We just need people to rise up and get active. And you don't even have to go, to the legislature. It could be actually just starting to say, we're not going to comply with these unjust laws. I think that's a duty that Americans have. And what excites me about COVID is I'm starting to see it in some pockets of our society where people are really rising up and pushing back. Obviously, we saw that with the Southwest employees the other week. I thought that was great. I was even flying that week, and I thought it was great. I was like, I don't care if I get trapped somewhere. This is awesome. Keep standing up. Keep pushing back. And I think that's what we need to see more people do in this society.
And maybe some hope there for a number of our listeners who may or may not be civically engaged to say, well, that's not necessarily a massive number of people when it comes to maybe an issue within your city council or your local school board, or as you said at the state level within our North Carolina General Assembly, to mobilize just 3.5% of the people of your state or of your city or within your county to make change or to at least apply the pressure that then we know how sort of elected officials react when there is some pressure consistently. They kind of blow the way the wind blows. So maybe a message of hope there that there is still change to be had and can be accomplished if you just build that coalition as you speak of. Quickly, before we get to COVID, though, Hannah, in terms of healthcare, amazing to me, and probably you, when you look at the last year and a half and you say, wow, the big thing that everyone was like cheering about was the fact that now telemedicine is, a thing in our country. Wow, we can call a doctor up and a nurse and they can speak with us over the phone. Holy moly, we're moving this downfield here, some of these issues. But I guess you have to start somewhere.
Well, it's so sad because I've been a telehealth proponent for many, many years. I initially got involved in politics by doing some work with mental health, which I'm very passionate about. And back in the day, I thought, wouldn't it be great if people, when they had a mental health issue, could just call up a therapist and have a FaceTime with them? Because so often when people are in the throes of a mental health crisis, you can't plan it, right? So if you've got like a therapist meeting planned for 3 weeks out and you're having like a psychotic episode or you're feeling suicidal, like that's not that helpful. But the ability to dial them up and have a quick chat would be very helpful. And it also would help eliminate a lot of the stigma that people feel and fear they feel about calling a therapist and going to their office and all of that kind of thing. And I started looking into launching a company around that. And I found out very quickly that I was not legally allowed to. Like I was not actually legally able to offer that kind of service. And that's because a lot of the insurance companies and a lot of the state governments have partnered together to actually block telehealth for decades because they want to keep their prices artificially high. And they know that when people have more access to more providers, that naturally brings the cost down. And so as a whole, this is something we've been working to chip away for many, many years. And what was so illuminating about COVID, I think, for people who aren't as in the trenches as I have been on these issues, but also frustrating for people like me, is that as soon as an actual emergency hit with COVID, what did we see the government do? Well, they immediately started rolling back their own regulations. They immediately started removing their approval processes because they know that it's junk, right? If these things were actually in place for any actual public health or safety component, then they wouldn't remove them during an emergency. They would say these things are still needed to keep people safe. That's not what they did. They recognized that these things they have in place actually make it harder to get services, they limit the supply, and they make things more expensive. And so when they needed to have a lot of people seen, they needed to really ramp up, what did they do? They removed regulations, they got government out of the way. That should forever answer anybody who tries to claim that these things are needed, that these things are put in place for our benefit, that these things are in any way a justified presence in our healthcare system. They're corrupt, and the fact that they are now starting to be re-implemented should create an outcry from the public.
Hannah, you are one of the only people, if not the only person that I know that laid out that sort of case in terms of why we should be loosening restrictions and allowing the patient, the doctor, to be able to have more access and conversation with each other, and what's been in the way of all of that. I think you're the only person that's made that case the way you just laid it out there for us in the world in the last 22 months.
Well, I'll have to write it down.
Let's make that note, please. Make that note tonight when you're on the Fox Business Channel. No? 7 o'clock, apparently?
Yeah, that's right. I'll be on Kennedy tonight at 7 Eastern.
Hannah Cox with us from the Foundation for Economic Education. We talk about that social strife, the anxiety, and back to healthcare just for a moment, which is why the primary care doctors have become more popular and more ever-present as physicians part ways with the system to gain more personal interaction with the patients they want to take care of on that sidebar. As we move the conversation just a little forward, is talk about the social strife and the tragedy that we see across the country because of these government lockdowns and mandates. 96,000 Americans died from drug overdoses over the last year, from March of last year to March of this year. You put it out there that anyone with an ounce of common sense knew lockdowns would lead to more deaths of despair, abuse, and isolation. Wasn't hard to predict, yet no one wanted to entertain that side of the discussion for the better part of the last 17 months. Why was that the case?
Well, there's been an agenda with COVID from the very beginning, and I think that's been outright obvious. There were many things that could have been done to actually prevent the spread of COVID, to try to mitigate its impact without creating more harm. Instead of taking those courses of action, we did the exact opposite, right? We went in the direction of things like lockdowns and things that we actually knew from history have never actually prevented the spread of disease. And again, just common sense would dictate that they don't. How does locking people in a house prevent the spread of a communicable disease? In fact, we found that the majority of COVID cases came within houses because people were locked in their homes together and caught COVID from one another. So it was always dumb, but there's been an agenda, and I think there's been a lot of opportunists. The first article I wrote on my Medium blog, actually, at the very beginning of COVID, I think it was April of last year, I wrote an article titled, "A Crisis is the Perfect Time to Seize Power," because anybody with even the faintest understanding of history knew what was going to happen at the very beginning of COVID. They never let a crisis go to waste. And so that's exactly the course of action that they took. And it obviously had tons of negative impacts. And that's true of any time we see central planning in an economy. It always leads to really terrible impacts and really bad side effects. And they won't ever acknowledge that because their goal is power. And their goal is being able to be the ones who dictate how things function and move. And so they're going to keep seizing that. And they don't really care what happens. So, people in my camp had been predicting that we would see things like mental health issues continue to skyrocket, addiction issues, domestic abuse problems, and we've sadly been very much proven right on all of those things. It's frustrating to have to report on these really terrible calamities that you predicted and that could have been avoided. But that article you're referencing is from my colleague, Brad Palumbo, who's done an excellent job of tracking some of this over the past year and a half. And again, consistently, the data keeps coming in, and we keep finding out we were more and more right. We're really waiting to get concrete suicide data. The government's trying to get ahead of it and claim that it hasn't gone up. But in reality, if you're somebody who's tracked suicides, which I have due to my work with mental health, the government doesn't report suicide data every year. either. So even the fact that they're trying to put out statistics right now and claim that they have them is kind of a farce. We don't know exactly what that will end up looking like, but based on the data from other countries we've seen and early indicators, we have every reason to think that has increased as well.
I mean, we've got universities in the state of North Carolina, canceling classes for a mental health day due to multiple suicides on campus over a couple of days. I think that explains all you need to know about the situation that we're going to see once some of those numbers are released, if they're accurate, of course. Hannah, before I let you go, you made mention also on your Twitter feed the other day, and not that you're a fan of Trump or anything like that, but you highlighted the fact that Trump at least opened the eyes of several folks throughout the country when it comes to the strong arm of the FBI, for instance, and now with the DOJ recently announcing that they're going to be helping law enforcement locally assess threats and violence at local school board meetings. This is one step further as far as just the influence that the Bureau has in what they choose to investigate and what they choose to ignore, or what were some of the things that went through your mind, again, as you've highlighted many issues that you've had with our top law enforcement agency over the years, and people are finally opening their eyes to this idea that maybe we should be keeping some checks and balances on that law enforcement agency.
Yeah, I just went into the Young Turks, which is a very progressive TV show yesterday, and had this debate, and it blows my mind that we now see the left defending the FBI. I'm like, didn't we just have a whole protest and a half last year over policing in this country, and now they're your friends? Like, come on. These agencies are corrupt, and I've known that. I've done a lot of work on criminal justice reform. It's been frustrating for me that the right, who claims to be for limited government, fails to recognize the problems with policing in this country and tends to back the blue and kind of have this very uncritical lens towards law enforcement in the country at large. And then you have the left, who recognize, or used to at least recognize, the problems with policing and still wants big government. So I've kind of been over here am I the only one that has this common sense approach to this? Big government's bad. And obviously these agencies are bad and corrupt, and they're unchecked. They have little accountability. You have things like qualified immunity that prevent them from ever being held accountable for their gross injustices that they perpetrate on the American people. There is endless amounts of abuse and fraud and corruption. It just gets worse and worse the deeper you go in. And this is true of all law enforcement, but the FBI has an especially checkered history. We know from the 1950s on, it was really used as a political weapon, right? They used it to label anybody who was protesting as a communist, and under the Red Scare, they went after those people. They labeled people like Martin Luther King Jr. a communist and used that as a reason to spy on him. They released propaganda trying to taint his image and hurt his leadership. They were trying to undermine the civil rights movement. That's just the tip of the iceberg. This is what they do. The FBI is not a police entity. It is a political organization and is used as a weapon by whoever is in charge against whatever population is disfavored at that time. Right now, we have a Democratic administration that is using it as a political weapon against the disfavored population, which is parents and others who are rising up to protest things like masking, lockdowns, and other abuse that's happening in our school system. And we know that it's been being used as a political weapon because of the way this went down. Look, you don't have to know a ton about the justice system to know this is highly suspect, right? We saw not the local law enforcement agencies asking for help, which would normally be the typical protocol to get the FBI involved. Instead, we saw the National School Board Association send a letter to the Department of Justice claiming that they had this overwhelming number of domestic terrorism and threats and that they needed help. That memo was processed in a matter of 5 days, including a weekend. Now listen, I've never seen a case get processed like that. That's unheard of. I talked to a former federal prosecutor the other day who was laughing about it. He's like, 5 days? 5 days. This was a coordinated effort. It was pretty obvious that the National School Board Association was asked to send this memo. The Department of Justice turned it around very fast, used this as a reason to then send the FBI in. And it's a political reason, right? First and foremost, the memo is overly broad. It includes things like intimidation and harassment, which, by the way, are First Amendment protected speech. According to Brandenburg versus Ohio, a famous Supreme Court case, it cannot be considered a threat. It doesn't cross that threshold from free speech into an actual breaking of the law unless there is an immediate plan of action and course the person intends to take. So I can say online, I'm going to overthrow the government. That's not a threat until I start making plans, meeting up with people, coordinating schedules. It's free speech. And so it's overly broad in that way. The FBI doesn't have the jurisdiction to look into these things. Even if there were threats, that would be a misdemeanor. It would be a misdemeanor. Can I tell you how many times we have threats that come into local law enforcement agencies from domestic abuse victims, from people in mental health crisis? And you know what we get told? They can't do anything until a person does something. And that's the law. But now we have the FBI that can do something before somebody does something for a misdemeanor. It's total hogwash. They've only had 2 arrests so far, so I don't even believe that they've had that many of actual things that could cross that threshold. And if we're going to start labeling like these kinds of activities at school boards of protests and pushing back as threats, then I want to know where that energy was for Kristen Sinema when she got chased into a bathroom the other week. I want to know where that energy was for Rand Paul when he and his wife were surrounded in the streets by protesters during the Black Lives Matter movement last year and harassed, and the police had to come rescue them. This is a completely political driven campaign, and it is meant to intimidate. It is meant to silence these parents who have every right to be outraged at what is happening in their schools and who are pushing back.
Hannah Cox with the Foundation for Economic Education. You can check her out at fee.org. That's FEE.org. She'll be on with Kennedy tonight on the Fox Business Channel beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern. And Hannah, quickly, talk about your new Liberty brand clothing line that you've unveiled.
Oh, thanks for bringing that up. I'm so excited about it. For years, I've looked around and wanted some cool Liberty merch, and everything I would find would just kind of look a little boomer, you know? And so I've launched a new line of merchandise. It's at my website, hannadcox.com. That's Hannah, D as in dog, Cox.com. And it's got all kinds of stuff. It's got sweatshirts and T-shirts and yoga mats and phone covers, but I've got a lot of capitalist merch, a lot of Liberty-leaning merch. It's very fun. We just released a new Halloween line today, actually, centered around how socialism kills, because I can think of nothing scarier than socialism. So if people want to get some cool merch, they can head on over there. Again, it's hannadcox.com and pick up some stuff.
Pick up a little bit of freedom through her Liberty collection at hannadcox.com. Hannah, you're one of the best. We enjoy your conversation every time you're with us, and we look forward to one real soon. Thanks again.
Thanks, Joe. Always a pleasure.
All right, we're moving up into the top of the hour. Boy. She hits it out of the park every time she joins the program, 7 o'clock tonight on the Fox Business Channel. All right, we'll wrap up the program in just a minute. If you'd like to get a call, we may have a minute or two when we get back to wrap it up here on the Big Talker FM.
Here's 1 minute of tree knowledge in 30 seconds with K.O. Davis.
It's important that you have somebody, a trained professional, to trim your trees. There are these guys out there that just hack trees, and that's the worst thing in the world that you can do. Don't let somebody hat rack your trees. That's a tree term for hat rack. You know how they just cut a tree and it looks like it's just got like a hat rack? These guys just go up and just cut the trees off, and they don't cut it back to the proper spot. Call us, because we care about your trees.
Visit KO'sCoastToCoastTree.com.
Don't let some yahoo hat rack your trees.
Here, Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catenacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hey, this is Mark Markley with Recovering Hope. We're going to continue with our diversion into prevention and alternative treatments for the Wuhan flu that you don't hear anywhere else. We'll continue to speak with a variety of professionals and others with personal experience. We'll share the truth, reduce your fears, and bring you hope. So please tune in right here on the Big Talker every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. for Recovering Hope.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006. All right, as we wrap it up here on this Wednesday, again, our friend Chad Adams will be filling in tomorrow. We're headed up to Boone, North Carolina, right in a minute here. Coastal Carolina, Appalachian State tonight. Looking forward to it. And, folks, have no fear. The Vice President is here, Kamala Harris, taking a central role in saving planet Earth. As she flew in a private jet yesterday all the way across country to give a speech on climate change and to speak in favor of elements of the new Green Deal, the Green New Deal. Have no fear, folks. Kamala Harris is here taking a central role in the fight against climate change and saving planet Earth. We'll be back a Freedom Friday in a couple of days. Chad Adams tomorrow. Stay safe out there.
Keeping Bald Head Island informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.